and the town, DOT and the town have been talking about one of the options being a small micro public drinking water system. And it just so happens that somebody's thinking about a subdivision in the same area. Right. So it may be a little premature to just ditch it. There's certainly nothing in the comprehensive plan that designates an area of town for public water that I can recall. I mean, obviously Belgrade Lakes Village would be the natural place. A lot of those wells down there are drinking each other's septage probably.
Sure. Yeah, I know that's, I guess I didn't understand that that the solution was potentially going to be a small public system. Would that be, out of curiosity, would that be under the town's ownership or a water district or?
Yet to be decided. I think that's part of the negotiations. I'm not privy to all that, but I just know from talking to Anthony that DOT is definitely pushing for the town to take over ownership. You know, cost and all that kind of stuff's going to come into play yet. It's kind of early in the process still, but it's not outside the realm of possibilities.
Okay. Just writing some notes here. So I'm sorry, you said, I mean, I know we've talked about it before, but you're saying it's by the town office and then what'd you say, depot?
Yeah, well, I don't know how to bet. It's basically from the town and DOT salt piles up by the cemetery or on the other side of the, I mean, that's all sand gravel aquifer.
Yeah.
And the plume, as best I can figure out from the DOT's water sampling, extends all the way down to the beyond the post office, if that helps at all.
It does. Okay, then we'll leave that in, and we'll reevaluate as we get to you know, see where we stand during final revision, and what kind of progress is being made.
Yeah. The only thing I for sure I can say is that first line in A1 is, you know, in terms of something in the comprehensive plan designating a part of town, there is no such thing in the plan, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, there probably wouldn't be, unless there's a little line item or something in like the future growth, future land use area. But we'll look at that a little bit more. Sorry, I would have had I guess I just assumed that you wouldn't be.
Yeah, absent that soil contamination, you would have been 100% correct.
Okay. All right, and then so 3, we start talking private systems, and I really think, I mean, it's all pretty solid. Everything's up to date. You know, discussing wells and design and placement of wells. The only thing, so D, 3D, this gets to in areas where the comprehensive plan has identified the need for additional water storage capacity for firefighting purposes. Is that, are there any, let's see. Is that what I want?
So Nick, are you wondering if that was identified somewhere in the comprehensive?
No, I'm sorry. I'm wondering if I have a note here that says leave for future question mark, but I don't think that's in the right spot. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, does anyone have any idea if the comprehensive plan has identified the need for additional water storage capacity?
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
think,
mean, I had written a note to myself about whether that was something worth talking to the fire chief about.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I went through this. I apologize for that. So,
I don't, I don't know offhand about the comprehensive plan, but it seems like we're surrounded by lakes and we have lakes all over the place and streams. I don't think there's a need for extra water anywhere.
Right.
I
Yeah.
believe that was some of the discussion while going through the comprehensive plan through the development. Although I can't swear to it right now, but I just don't recall identifying a need for extra storage ponds.
right. I think it's while most of Belgrade is surrounded by water, I guess I could see an instance where there might be a subdivision area that would be far away from water or underserved, where there could potentially be the need of a pond or whatnot in the subdivision, just in case. But
Or at least a dry hydrant.
right, yeah. And we do talk about dry hydrants in here, or hydrants in general. So that's down on number 4. So we'll talk to the fire chief and see if there's been any indication that there are potentially areas that are underserved, or if this can just be reworded and taken out.
Nick, I have a question about a paragraph above that.
Sure.
It's paragraph B that
Yep.
deals with lot design shall permit placement of well, subsurface wastewater disposal and reserve sites for subsurface wastewater disposal. If we got it seems like that's, I understand that's sort of the objective, but I was just wondering if there's a way to make that a little bit more specific or prescriptive on how to implement that. I mean, the plumbing code obviously has the standard of you have to be 100 feet, have 100 feet between a existing well and a new septic system. But how do you ensure that you don't have people putting septic systems on property lines and requiring everybody to down the hill to kind of, put in their well at the extreme other end of their lot?
So you want to know if we could develop some actual standards with
Yeah.
that? Sure. Let's see. Anything off the top of your head, George, that you would feel strongly about?
No, not really. I just, it seemed like it would be, because it's kind of non-specific, I could easily see us or future boards just skipping right over it because not knowing how to implement it.
Sure. Yeah, we can certainly talk about develop some criteria that would deal with buffers, setbacks, and whatnot.
Okay.
Was that the only thing that you had seen?
Oh, hello, Nick.
Yeah, Peter, how's it going?
Good yourself.
Doing well, thanks.
Just joined the meeting a little bit late.
That's
Uh,
okay.
Just a question on George. George spoke about is in the commercial plans here in Maine, is there typically a section for that about setbacks and regarding wells and stuff like that? Is it typical?
I haven't particularly come across that. I don't know if at all, to be honest with you. But it's certainly something I can look into. And
Okay, what I was just sort of getting at is if it is, there should be some sort of standard language out there,
sure.
other lake towns, how they handle it,
Yeah, that's my hope.
Okay.
That we can, if it's out there, that we can find some boilerplate and then kind of do what we're doing here.
Yeah. All right, that's my only thought.
Yep. And then the rest, and then we jump down to water quality, which is B, 10.2B.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, Craig.
I'm struggling to find, I have my notes and saying we stopped at 10.1 on the model ordinance. Don't I have a hard copy of the model ordinance? Or is it just by email?
I do not know if you do. So we had, let's see if I can. So I sent out yesterday an email with the document as an attachment, a Word document.
We have Article 10, general standards,
Correct. That's it.
but where do I open that up?
Just double click on it.
Craig, did you have an attachment? Sounds like you do.
I don't see an attachment. That's what I'm asking.
Craig, I can resend it to you real quick if you want me to.
Yeah, can you do it in a PDF form?
Yep. Give me 5 seconds.
Sorry, Craig.
And Pete, do you have that same document? Pete Sargent, do you have that one?
If I do, I wouldn't know how to bring it up. So
Okay.
I'm just listening.
Okay. Great.
You can continue on, don't you?
Okay. B, water quality. Water supply shall meet the primary drinking water standards contained in the main rules relating to drinking water. And then it says, if existing water quality contains contaminants in excess of the secondary drinking water standards in the main rules, that fact shall be disclosed in a note on the plan to be recorded in the Registry of Deeds. So, I think this is kind of, this is potentially important standard, especially while discussing the proposed subdivision with by the salt leaching. And so I don't know if there's anything else that can really be done other than having it disclosed.
Nick, I have a question if I may.
Yes.
I was just curious how this would work, because when at the point in time when we would get an application, nobody would really know, that neither the developer or consequently us, whether the wells that will be installed will meet the primary drinking water standards. I think they use different terminology now at the main CDC, but or at the public drinking. Well, actually, it's the environmental toxicology unit. I think they might use maximum exposure guidelines now as the terminology. But that aside for a moment, nobody really knows what the water quality is under that land at the point of the application being submitted. So I'm not quite sure how this would work. I know that, 9 out of 10 sites or 99 out of 100 sites in Belgrade would be just fine. Yeah, some sites are going to have high arsenic, potentially. Some sites may have high radon or iron, which is a secondary. That's a nuisance, not a health issue. So I have another question, but why don't we deal with that one first?
Sure. I guess that's probably a good point. And that's probably why you would submit that in a note. That's probably potentially after the fact. And so that wouldn't forbid anyone, from proceeding. I guess that makes sense now that we're talking through it. So you would, after having found out that you have your water quality is subpar and has contaminants, then you would disclose that, file that, and then so that would be retained knowledge, and then you would work about remedying it.
Something like 90% of the drilled wells have issues.
Yeah.
Well, they're private wells, so aren't they handled through the private citizen with filtration systems and stuff? I mean,
Right.
majority, if you really give a thorough water test on any of these wells around here, either it's going to be radon or arsenic or something. I mean, I can understand with the salt issue, that's not normal. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, that kind of, Craig, leads to my second point. I was wondering, rather than language of this nature, basically anybody that buys parcel of land and puts in a private well, they do so at their own risk. It isn't like, a public drinking water supply where there's an assurance of the quality of the water.
Correct.
But there is language that relates to this in the comprehensive plan, and it has to do with preventing, generally speaking, or this is my take on it anyway, of preventing development on lands that have been contaminated by man-made pollutants. So one way to skin that cat would be to require the developer to do the equivalent of a phase 1 site assessment. If you're familiar with that, like from brownfields or VRAP, Nick, I don't know if you.
I'm not much in the brownfields, but I'm around in enough meetings to generally know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that for everybody's benefit, that's basically a record search of existing contamination sites, primarily through DEP's file system. So that would include petroleum sites, that would include hazardous waste sites. I don't know whether it would pick up on a salt contamination case or not. It probably would, I guess, because that would be in DEP records. Fortunately, in our case, we, the whole town knows about it. But it would, for example, it would pick up on whether the neighbor next door had a home heating oil tank failure and release, and that property may be at risk. It would pick up on the fact that down on Lakeshore Drive, there were 5 wells contaminated by gasoline back in the 90s. Things of that nature. I mean, Belgrade doesn't, to the best of my knowledge, doesn't have a lot of these kinds of sites. They're mostly small ones, but they're we do have an example where somebody built a house and put their well into the Old Town dump, but you can't regulate that kind of stupidity.
Right. I certainly, yeah, that's, so require developer to complete a phase 1 set. Are in the comprehensive plan, or is any of that mapped?
No.
No.
I think there's just some language to that effect of avoiding development on existing contaminated sites, man-made contaminated sites, not
Right.
naturally occurring arsenic or radon.
Right.
Because my home we have elevated radon, and we have a treatment system on our well.
Nick or George, probably George. Now, if you did a record search, if the developer did a record search down at DEP, who oversees the results of it? I mean, how does it? Because people in the planning board here see it, or what? I mean, how do you know it gets done, and who evaluates it? I guess.
Yeah. Well, just to follow up on that, yeah, I would see that as a submittal as part of the application process to the planning board. And I think for it to work, you need to either to have some kind, there later on in the proposed ordinance, there's a requirement for our hydrogeological or specifications if a hydrogeological investigation is needed and how to do one. I would see this as a 2-step process. Do the phase 1 site assessment. If nothing comes up, you're good to go. If it shows that you may be selling lots whose owners would be putting wells into an area of, say, a fuel oil leak and into the groundwater and bedrock, in that case, conduct the hydrogeological investigation. It's talked about later in the ordinance.
Okay, that's okay. And my other follow-up question is that when the developer, the developer would do the record search down in DEP, and if that's the case, does DEP, how do we know the planning board if what's in the record search? How do we know if the record search that the developer did, he may have edited it or taken things out? How do we know it's complete?
That's a good question, Peter. There's a standard protocol for doing this. It's banks require these all the time on the sale of commercial properties. It's standard lending procedure now in most banks. Skowhegan Savings, sometimes not. But they've also ended up with some contaminated parcels as a consequence. But I think it's a ASTM protocol that they follow, and we could cite that in here. That if we chose to go this route, I was just trying to find something that gave us information on whether the water supplies for that would be tapped by private wells are likely to be contaminated rather than whether they're likely to be clean.
Yeah, it's a good concept. I think if we do get into this, we need to probably find out from some of the other, other towns, other banks, how are other banks handling it, not Skowhegan, we'd have to get into this, pretty much and find out the best way to administer it at our level, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Don't misunderstand. Banks don't require this for private homes. It's for commercial and industrial property sales.
Okay. All right. So if we started doing for private homes, we'd have to come up with some type of procedure, and probably would have to try to model it after how they do in the commercial situation. What's the difference? You know what I mean? I'm just thinking out loud here. So
Yeah.
that's where we're going to have to go with this. But it's a good concept. Yeah. Yeah. Something to think about. Yeah.
I don't know, Nick, what you think of that, whether that's workable in this context.
I certainly think it can be. I understand Pete's concern. There are certainly ways to ensure that you're receiving accurate information, though. But I think it's certainly something that we can definitely look into. I think it's a good idea.
One thing I could do if it would help, I think DEP has some standardized protocols for example, citing the ASTM standard for doing these. I mean, this is nationwide. This is nothing unique
Right.
to Maine by any means. That's why there's a national standard for it. If that would help, I could do a little research on DEP's website and send that information to you.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to do it, I'll also do it, and then we can see, and then we can cross-reference and see how we're looking.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody in your office is more involved in the brownfields, VRAP type sites. They would be all over this.
Yeah. So I can certainly. So the individual that used to be in charge of overseeing the brownfields program was our economic and community development specialist, but he's since left. So we do have our environmental planner has kind of taken over brownfields, and he's becoming familiar fairly quickly. So I'll get with him. I guess we'll see each other on Monday. So I'll chat with him on Monday regarding this.
I just had a thought to follow up. George, it's a good part-time paying job for you. How's that?
Yeah, no thanks. Yeah, just what I want to do is rummage around in DEP's files.
Yeah.
They could do it from home potentially, if they've done everything online.
A lot of it is electronic now, but
Yeah. Okay. So I'll look into that. And George, if you want to do the same, and then we can circle back to that.
okay.
10.3, erosion and sedimentation and impact on water bodies. So again, we're kind of getting to the point where, it tells you that something shouldn't be done, but there aren't a lot of standards. But I don't know how comfortable the board is with what's in there as it stands.
I was wondering whether we could incorporate by reference DEP's best management practices. I don't know the exact title and date, but they have such a document, I know.
Yeah, they do.
And that would add a little bit more meat to the bone.
Let's see.
And most contractors are familiar with those, particularly around here where many of them have the DEP certification.
Yep. So there are two manuals available. So there is the Main Erosion and Sediment Control Practices for Field Guide for Contractors. And then there's also just the it's for engineers. So we could certainly do we can I think I can pull in, I'll cite
I don't remember which one we cited, but we did incorporate by reference into the commercial development review ordinance. I mean, admittedly, this was what, 4 years ago or 3 years ago or whatever it was. That best management practice manual. I don't remember which one of those two it was, or if there's yet another one, but it might be, there may be some advantage to being consistent.
Yeah, I'll pull it up right now. Actually, I don't think. Best. Let's see. So this was actually, this one might be outdated. This was from 91. Let's see. You had used the contractors in the commercial. There's a 2014 revision though. So, I'll.
I'm in a Zoom meeting right now.
So we'll reference that. And does that work for everyone?
It would work, I think, as far as I'm concerned. It's
Okay.
consistent and- So time check, Nick, just to keep you aware.
640.
6:40. Yep.
Okay.
Sorry to be taking up so much time, but in paragraph C of that same section or subsection, it deals with not increasing water temperature and stream.
Right.
And it seems more meat needs to be added to that bone as well. I actually went back and forth a little bit with Inland Fish and Wildlife on this, on a subdivision on my road before I was on the planning board. And at that point in time, they were recommending a 75-foot buffer on either side of a stream, as defined by state statute. So it's not every
Right.
stream, but
Right. Did they talk about water temp? Did you have a discussion about water temperature?
it was water quality in general.
Okay.
It wasn't specific to water temperature.
When I first read this, I was kind of shocked that it did mention specifically water temperature, because I mean, what a fluid measurement, depending on when that water temperature is taken, I mean, how many factors go into that. So what if we said shall not decrease water quality? I know that's even more broad, but so it would read: cutting or removal of vegetation along water bodies shall not decrease water quality or result in shoreline erosion or sedimentation.
I agree with George on this one. Water temperature really isn't that fluid. It's a significant trigger for water quality. So I think it is worth putting something in about maintaining water temperature. Specifically, you don't want to. The buffer keeps the water temperature low. So if you cut down all the trees, then the water temperature goes up.
Right, but I guess my what I was getting at is that I mean, how do you measure whether or not, what I was trying to say is that there are so many factors that go into the actual temperature of the water on any given day that you're taking. How do you measure? How do you compare a measurement of a water temperature, at current to some time in the past. I mean, obviously there's historical records of ponds or, you know, temperatures, lake temperatures, I suppose. But they can be few and far between, especially, I mean, stream water temperature. I don't know how many gauges are around. That's all I understand. I definitely understand the importance of water temperature on the overall health and water quality. I guess I just don't know how you regulate and how you officiate the taking of a water temperature for this purpose.
Isn't there standards already set in like that you can only cut so close to a stream and everything, certain amount anyways already? I mean, it's impossible to compare from year to year stream temperature. You can't do it. It's two different years. It's so it's you know, as far as the stream goes, it's difficult. But don't we already have standards in like shoreline and cutting close to streams already in place, other than the subdivision ordinance?
No, we
That they
don't.
have to,
Go ahead, Craig. I'm sorry.
that they have to follow. I mean, because there's already standards set that you can only cut so close to a stream and everything already. Correct?
Actually, we had decided in our shoreline zoning revisions not to include streams beyond the model ordinance has that squirrely language about the first fork. So we as a board decided not to expand that those protections beyond that. So so people could do as much cutting as they wanted next to the stream at this point in time. I mean, I kind of agree with, I think what you were hinting at, Craig, that it would be easier for everybody, including the developer, if there was just, you know, a standard that achieves this goal of maintaining water quality, including maintaining the water temperature regime. And I think the cheapest and best way to do that is to maintain a natural buffer along the stream, and you know, Inland Fish and Wildlife recommends 75 feet. That would, you know, count towards whatever the developer has to set aside for open space anyway. So it kind of, you know, they kind of get a twofer. So I would suggest putting in a requirement for a 75-foot buffer and recognize that that'll achieve protection of water quality.
So a stream, now, what's the definition of a stream? It's not going to be a brook way off in the, you know, miles away from everything, is it? I mean,
I sat in on a DEP presentation about shoreland zoning, and I think that there were like, it's something that they really need to work on. There's some like 50 different, more or less usages of stream for different classifications of water bodies.
But that's a good point. It would need to be defined, and
Right.
there is a definition in at least one definition in statute, other than the one in the shoreline zoning minimum guidelines, that is pretty easy for people to follow, because the key ingredient to that is it doesn't show up on a topo map. And so, you know, it makes it easy for the developer and makes it easy for us. And it doesn't include, you know, the itty bitty little far reaches or headwaters necessarily.
Right. Intermittent streams and.
Yeah, well, it could include potentially.
Could, I guess, yeah.
But it
Right.
wouldn't include, say, ones that had a vegetated rather than a mineral base.
Right.
a lot of those dry up anyways, so how would you be changing the temperature?
Yeah.
I mean, even an intermittent stream, a lot of them dry up. I mean, so it seems like you're placing a buffer on something that's going to dry up and evaporate anyways.
Right. So is the board's happy with 75-foot buffer? And then so it'll be a 75-foot buffer on streams to be defined outside of the, this would be outside of shorelands for anything that is, for any stream that isn't defined or picked up on the shoreland zoning.
Sounds good. I was trying to scroll through NERPA stream PDF to see if there was a definition.
I think,
Yeah.
real quick, I think Peter started trying to say something. Pete, you gotta unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. I'm not happy with what's going on right now. I in disagreement with the 75-foot figure. If you're going to do it, it's going to be a lot less than 75 feet. And then I didn't quite follow. George mentioned there is some language out there somewhere, someplace. I'd like for us to see it in writing first, take a look at it. So I think it's premature to get definitive about it right now.
And I agree with that as well. 75 feet. So if you go 75 feet on each side, that's 150 feet. Well, your lot's 200 feet wide. So there you go. Boom, gone. So a definite, it needs to be definitely described and what a stream is and what size it is and what. To me, a stream is fairly large. It's not a brook. It's not a brook that will run in the springtime and dry up, and so that's an intermittent brook. That shouldn't be included in the stream because that dries up anyways. And so I'm not quite sure I'm with the 75-foot either.
Well, maybe we need to go back to the beginning. I mean, the goal here is to protect the water quality and what that's stream, whether it be intermittent or perennial, brings to the lakes. So, the fact that it's partially dry part of the year is almost irrelevant. It is when it's carrying water, how much phosphorus is it carrying? How much sediment is it carrying? And how do you prevent that from happening? Whether it's, I'm certainly willing to, if you guys have an alternative solution, in mind, I'm all ears on how to accomplish that goal, but I'm not really willing to give up on that goal of protecting water quality.
Can I say something? I understand what George you're saying. As I understand, I'm just thinking like a property. I have intermittent stream that dries up in my 4 acres in the back lot, and that stream flows into a forest or wetland. So I'm kind of under the impression what I've seen around here in Belgrade, all these intermittent streams that dry up in the summertime, et cetera, when it rains out, they pick up some water. They do go into these little brooks, end up in some type of wetland. Usually the first thing it goes into is the forested wetland. Then from the forested wetland, it goes into a non-forested wetland, all right, and then gets into a regular river. So that's probably the case. What, not 95% of the time? I don't know. So I think you're overreacting, George.
Well, I just finished training for today for the watershed survey that's going to be done for Long Pond, sponsored by the Belgrade Lakes Association, and this is exactly the issue they're very concerned about, is streams carrying phosphorus to Long Pond in the case of today, in other stressed lakes like Great Pond and East Pond. I understand your point. Your point's well taken, Peter, that these little wetlands do have a mitigating impact on water quality for the better. But what if you have a subdivision? Well, for example, the subdivision next to me, goes across an intermittent stream, but that goes directly to Long Pond. There's no wetlands in between. And so any sediment or phosphorus runoff coming off those lawns goes directly to Long Pond, whether they use one of those chemical lawn companies or whether it's sediment from the construction phase. How do you deal with that? How do you prevent that?
Well, that's an interesting point you bring up, and I know what you're saying there. I think there must be other towns out there here in the state of Maine, or even in New Hampshire where it's more developed. How you got to get into how do they handle those kind of situations? We need, again, I think I'm not on a research committee, but they should be looking at that, how it's handled in other states, in other similar situations like communities. So I don't see us where we're going to jump and do it right now. So that's my thought. And another way to control the amount of phosphorus going to these lakes is the height of the water, the dams committee. And they've addressed a different issue, but they've addressed it. They're beginning to address it. You can load up a lake when the water's too high in the lake, you get a lot of wind. It just erodes all the soil right off the shoreline. So I think that's more of a big problem you need to start paying attention to. And I don't see it being really discussed much around in the conservation group here in our community. So I think we're reacting a little bit too fast on what you're suggesting. So that's my thought.
Nick,
So-
are you aware of any? Sorry, go ahead, Mac.
Let me just add, so NERPA, I looked up definitions under NERPA, and they have river, stream, or brook. And it's a single definition, river, stream, or brook. A channel between defined banks, and then it has different categories. And that's the definition that you're talking about that's delineated on the USGS maps. So if you're looking for ways for developers to have a clear direction, I totally agree that we should. I think it's better for everybody, us and the developer, to have a clear delineation. If we say 75 feet, if we say 50 feet, whatever, but put that in. Don't say it won't lower the temperature or it will keep the water quality. And say a river, stream, or brook as defined in NERPA and reference that. But obviously we're running out of time. I totally agree. I think it's too, we're not in agreement here to move forward. I just wanted to reference NERPA definition is the one George was talking about, and I think that's the definition we should reference when we come back to the discussion.
Yeah, and just so everyone can see that, I did throw that in the chat box, a link to that on Title 38.
It's also in this book that everybody has, page 183. I don't know, personally, I prefer things on paper to electronic, so I reference this a lot. Anyway, page 183.
Another thing we could consider is just keeping what we have now, which I believe is based on percent slope. And the focus is more on sedimentation and erosion and less on things like water temperature. So I think it starts off, this is typical for logging operations too, both in the unorganized townships and U.S. Forest Service lands. They rely on slope. So you start off with at 0%, it's like 25 feet minimum, and then it goes up from there depending on the percent slope, which makes some sense because it's the greater the slope, the faster the water runs, the more energy it has to carry sediment and phosphorus.
Right.
Good point, George. I like that one.
Yeah, I'd be open to that as well.
Okay.
Excellent. That could be a good direction for this.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we'll look into that. Shoot. Okay. Well, 7 o'clock. So I guess we'll pick up next time we'll start, hopefully I'll try to get some answers to this stuff out in advance of the next meeting, so that everyone can read through it, and then we can have a discussion regarding that. But looks like people are popping on at 7, so I'll let you guys get to it.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate your.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you. We'll see you guys later.
Yep.
Right. See
Enjoy
you.
the music.
Thanks. Okay. Okay, I think we've got some other folks here for the next item on the agenda, which is the commercial application. Are we all set to move on to that, planning board?
Yep.
Peter, I was just wondering if it would make procedural sense to take up Adam's Great Pond shoreline zoning application first, since it's something of a prerequisite to the commercial.
That's a great idea. I would be in support of that. The other planning board members, are they okay doing that one first?
Sure.
Seeing head nods, yes, in agreement. So let us go to Adam Gardner's shoreland application. And Gary, are you here with us? I think I saw you before. Yep. Awesome.
Yes, I am.
Okay, just so you know,
Yes, I am, Peter.
Yep, we can hear you. You're a little bit broken up, but we're catching most of what you're saying. All right. So does everybody have the shoreland zone application in front of them? Board members. George, yes?
I'm sorry, would you ask, Peter?
Just making sure everybody has the application in front of them.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. And Pete, you're listening?
Yes.
Mac, do you have it? And Craig, thumbs up?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
I have it.
All right. Thank you. All righty. Okay, Adam submitted the application. It looks like proposing to build an entrance, build a floor inside the existing building for retail space. Okay. And it looks like Robert Gardner gave permission to Adam Gardner to pull a permit on the storage building located on Main Street in the Belgrade Lakes Village. That was a letter attached to this. Adam, I was looking at this previously, and I had never been inside the building that we're talking about. So it was cool to see the picture that you had talked about before, with that you come in the door and you drop way down. I academically knew what you're talking about, but I had never laid eyes on that or set foot in the building. So that was good to see that. So that's helpful.
Yeah, it almost looks like a potato barn.
It does, doesn't it? All right, let's start at the beginning. What questions do we have for the applicant on this case?
Peter, I actually have a question for Gary for starters, if I may.
Thank you.
And that is, why is this before the planning board? And I think the answer to that question is because it's a change of use in the limited commercial zone of the shoreline zone. In other words, commercial boat storage to 2 retail units. And then we also have the addition of 40 square feet of footprint on a non-conforming lot. Gary, do I have that correct?
So I'm sorry, George, I missed most of that question.
Okay, well, my question is, why is this before the planning board? And I think the answer to that, from my review, is that because it's a change of use in the limited commercial zone, in other words, some boat storage to 2 retail shops. And then
Correct.
also we have the addition of 40 square feet of footprint on a non-conforming lot. Do I have that?
You do, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so that's why it's here. What other questions do we have for the applicant at this time?
I'm sorry, I missed the 40 square feet of additional. Where is that?
Just the entranceway.
Yeah, the new entranceway.
It's just
What?
just a roof over the entranceway door.
Oh,
It'll be covering a little bit of pavement that's already existing on the roadside.
I see. Right. Okay. All right.
Adam, am I correct that it looks like from one of the sketches I looked at that it would have like a concrete floor underneath it too?
Concrete floor under the entrance.
Yeah.
I'm just going to probably leave the pavement or put pavers there, one of the two.
Oh, okay.
Because that pavement runs right up to the building. Like plan and seeing is not really to touch anything outside, just kind of leave it as natural as we can. So right now, I'm not planning to put anything there. If anything, it'd be pavers, but it'll probably just be the pavement, and I'll just do the 2 techno posts or post and pad just to hold the roof system for now.
Thank you.
Yep.
And this is going to be two separate retail shops or one shop?
2 separate. So one of them will be what's probably see on the fire marshal plans as jams. The other one at this point in juncture is not filled. Essentially either be rental or overflow. But it'd be the idea to be retail shop, but there's no one at this point to actually move in there to fill the space.
Peter,
Yes, George,
may I ask Gary another question if I may?
please do.
Gary, does this meet the minimum lot size standards in the shoreline zoning ordinance on page 28, section, section 15A?
The 40,000 feet?
No, in the shoreline zoning ordinance for commercial, it is 60,000
Oh,
square
60?
feet per
I don't
principal
think it does.
principal use.
Right, but
I don't,
just go ahead, Gary. I have a comment on that when you're done.
no, go ahead.
So I did a little research on that. We're not actually building another building there. So it's considered a grandfathered commercial building. I believe it was built in 1987, 88, somewhere in there. So we're actually taking that actual airspace that you can see in that picture and putting it in there. It'd be one thing if we were adding another building to that property, but we're not actually adding a building to that particular property, because the way you'd be asking that would require any commercial building that has more than one commercial residence in it to require every single residence to have 60,000 square feet. And there's other properties, you know, in the shoreline zone that have more than one businesses in them that aren't meant to require that, because there's like it's a grandfathered commercial building. If we were going to add a building out front and cover, let's say, the pavement, then that might be a different structure. But we're going to an existing commercial building, we're just adding a business. I mean, the reason why we're here is because we're adding a retail shop to it. We're not adding a second building. You know, it's not like we're doing anything other than inside work with very minimal outside work for an entrance.
I don't disagree with that at all, Adam. What I'm referencing has to do with so the ordinance says all land use activities within the shoreline zone shall conform with the following provisions, and then minimum lot size standards. And then under commercial, it says per principal structure. You're right. That's, you know, you're not building another structure or use. So we're changing the use, or you're changing the use from one commercial use to another commercial use. That's why I'm asking the question.
I'm adding a second use to it. I'm not changing it. So the storage is still going to be there. So the change word kind of throws me for a loop, because I'm adding another business to an existing commercial building.
See, my understanding is if you change from storage, basically, or warehousing or boat storage to retail, that's a change in use, and might trigger that minimum lot size requirement.
But you'd be going on something that's been grandfathered since the 80s as a commercial building. That you would say that if, so what you're saying is someone has a commercial building that's, actually that piece has been commercial probably back since the early 1900s, because originally it was what they call a casino. That burned down. At one point there was a gas station there, then it was storage, there's a roller rink, movie theater, and then it's been boat storage a couple different times. So what you were implying is that if you took a commercial building on less than 60,000 square feet, for instance, you know, any building, I guess, less than 60,000 square feet, and you change the use of it, and it's been there for 100 years, that you're going to say, well, it doesn't meet the lot size. Sorry, too bad. You can't put another commercial use in there.
Well, different uses have different impacts. That's the whole point. I mean, for example, the retail shops will generate a lot more traffic than the boat storage facility ever would.
Not really. I mean, it's in the village. If you go to a comprehensive plan, the idea is to advance the village. I mean, most of the parking is on the streets in the village. I mean, we're actually going to be adding eight slips. So if you really think about it, someone's going to park there. They might walk to the Maid shop. They might walk over to the 3 new stores across the road, or down the Days, or down to you know, the Village Inn or somewhere. So you're not really adding a lot more traffic. You're actually pulling traffic probably off the street and giving them a place to park.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the what you're saying with regard to the commercial to the comprehensive plan. I'm asking a legal question. You know, is this a am I interpreting the ordinance correctly, that because it's a change of use, it triggers the need for at least 60,000 square feet, possibly more, of lot area, and if we don't know the answer, then we should get it from an attorney.
Right.
If that's the case, though, then you're pretty much choking out the whole village. I mean, if that's the case, then basically what we have in the village is going to stay, and that's going to be it. There's not going to be any change, no improvements, if that's the case, then we need to fix that, is what I'm saying.
Well, George, I see what you're saying, but I disagree with the interpretation. I don't think we need to get a lawyer. I would argue that this is clearly a non-conforming lot, and there's a section on non-conformance in the beginning of the ordinance. that basically says non-conforming lots, non-conforming uses, all non-conforming structures, basically they can keep going as long as they don't become more non-conforming. And my interpretation is this is a non-conforming lot. It has non-conforming structure, in fact, because there's tons of impervious surface. So I would say it's totally and completely non-conforming. As long as he doesn't make it more non-conforming, then everything's fine. And the way I would say to make it, to keep it more, or to keep it not more non-conforming, is to just say anything you do outside has to be pervious pavement. So no, like he said, he doesn't want to do anything to the outside already. But if he did do anything, I think we should just put in a note that says, if you ever decide to do anything outside, it has to be pervious, because you already have way too much impervious. But I think he doesn't want to do anything outside anyway, so he's not increasing the nonconformity.
When was this lot created? It has to be created before 1976 to be non-conforming.
Pretty sure it's an original lot from the village, because it was always separate, because the one next to it is the I believe it was the Lakeshore Hotel, where the single structure stands, what's next to the Red House. Pretty sure it's been a lot way before then, before 1976. I think it's an original lot from like early 1900s, because it was, like I said, originally was the casino was a motion picture place, and then they turned a roller rink at one point in time, and somewhere along the lines it was a gas station, and then they used boat storage back. Clark's had it, and then it fell down, and they rebuilt it.
Right, yeah. No, I remember that when, I always heard it referred to as the carriage house, but I don't know if that was accurate.
Yeah, I'm not 100% on that one.
Okay. All right. I'm still not sure if I agree with you, Mac, but unfortunately, the ordinance doesn't define principal use. Or change in use.
Correct. I think it's
Clearly changing the use. He's adding a use, so that's why we're here, right? You know, because he's changing the use. But I think in terms of shoreline zoning, the problem is the whole purpose of shoreline zoning is to protect the shoreline, and he's not doing anything to the exterior that's already. So I don't know. I don't see any problem. It is non-conforming. I totally agree. There's way too much impervious surface, but
Don't misunderstand. I don't have a problem with the concept. I'm concerned that we're going to render a legally defensible decision. I mean, like Craig, you know, if this was in fact triggered this minimum lot size standard and prevented this type of development, I would agree that some change is necessary to encourage this kind of development in the Belgrade Lakes Village, not necessarily elsewhere in town, but
I don't think. I'm sorry, George. I disagree on the interpretation that it could anyway trigger the 60,000 square foot. It's clearly a non-conforming lot.
okay.
So,
Which,
Mac, if it's a non-conforming lot, right? Are we saying that we're taking it? We have either evidence, or we're taking it on faith that this was a non-conforming lot of record as of May 4, 1976. Is that what we're saying?
yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the deed that he brought in with his original application, and that was the property sold in 1994 from Clark Marine to whatever. And it says at the bottom of the deed, it says, this is to describe a portion of the premises conveyed to Clark Marine by warranty deed from Richard Allum, Gerald Harriman, and David Harriman, dated April 4th, 1978, then recorded in Registry of Deeds. So 78 is after 1976. So I guess you would have to look at that deed and see, okay, where did that come from? Or at that transfer in 1978, what was transferred? You know, was it creating a new lot in 1978, or was that 1978 a transfer of an existing lot? You know,
Pretty sure it's been I'm pretty sure it's been an existing lot since it was created, because if you look at structures down in the village, you have the greenhouse that's right next to it. It's been there forever, and the one next to it's the old Lakeshore Hotel. It's been there since the turn of the century. I can try to look up that particular deed in the Kennebecker Registry right now to see if it shows when that was actually created. But if you actually look at the structures in the village, there's really no place to break that piece of land off from.
Peter, it might be helpful to actually read the relevant section of the ordinance that Mac's been referring to. It's on page 16. And
Because we're at E, non-conforming lots 1.
12E, right? So, non-conforming lots, a non-conforming lot of record as of May 4th, 1976 may be built on without the need for a variance, provided that such lot is in separate ownership and not contiguous with any other lot in the same ownership. And we've just discussed that in part. That the state minimum lot size law and subsurface waste disposal rules are complied with. So that's question number 1, and it continues on, and that all provisions of this ordinance except lot area, shore frontage, and minimum lot width can be met. Now, we've obviously shore frontage is irrelevant here. It's not applicable because there is none, but it doesn't matter because as Max pointed out, lot area in the shoreline zoning ordinance is not relevant, but can this I didn't think this section applied, partly because he's not building anything. It's a change of use. So it says it may be built on. It doesn't speak. That's why I'm confused as to what the legality is with regard to a change of use and what, if any, minimum lot size requirements need to be met, whether it be in this ordinance or in the minimum lot size ordinance.
I see some of the confusion because when it's written that way, where it says it can be built on, the assumption is that it's new building on the property, as compared to what Adam is proposing, which is within a current structure.
Right.
okay, well, can you look at the preceding paragraph? Number 3, change of use.
Yeah.
An existing non-conforming use may be changed to another non-conforming use.
Right. And it's so hence my question about the amount of traffic being increase in traffic. If you go once we get to the commercial development review ordinance, you'll see that increase to retail automatically triggers it to be considered a change of use because of the increased traffic. mean, if everybody else is clear on this and feels that, you know, lot size from the shoreline zoning ordinance and the minimum lot size ordinance are relevant, then we should just move on. I don't want to spend, you know, beat this to death.
I'm comfortable with this at this point. I have no objection.
So Pete, you think the lot size requirements don't apply here?
I think you're making a mountain out of a molehill, tell you the truth, so I don't know. No problem with it.
Let me ask a question if you don't mind. So within the scope of the shoreline zoning ordinance, if we are thinking that this is a non-conforming lot, does the state minimum lot size law, let's see, the state, are they complied with in this application or are they not?
Well, I think that's a question for Gary on the minimum lot size ordinance.
So
Even with an existing building,
what's that?
even with an existing building, commercial building?
I think the answer is yes.
What page are you looking at on that?
So Craig, and I could be reading something wrong, but I'm on page 16.
16 on the shoreline?
Yes. Shoreline zone ordinance. And in,
Non-conforming lots?
yes. I was down a couple lines and it says, you know, stuff may be built on without need for variance, provided that that the state minimum lot size law and subsurface waste disposal rules are complied with.
Well, he's got the subsurface waste. He has a plan for that, so that's complied with.
Okay, what about the state minimum lot size law? I guess I'm turning to Gary for that.
I personally don't think that section applies. We're talking about an existing building. We're not talking about being able to build on the lot.
Oh, I see. So Gary, if I'm hearing you right, when you say that when we're talking about an existing building, rather than like the statement here where it says may be built on without the need for, and then et cetera, et cetera.
Right, that would be a vacant lot.
Right. I see what you're saying.
I mean, if you're on that same page 16, the number 3 there, it says change of use. An existing non-conforming use may be changed to another non-conforming use provided that proposes no greater adverse impact to the subject. Well, it doesn't say in there adding a use to it, so we're adding. We're not fully changing the use out of there. You know, we're losing a little bit of storage. But I agree, like with Gary, that we're not looking to build this building. This building's already existing. We're just looking to take some airspace and add a little bit of floor space in there to add some retail shops to the village, which I don't think that the minimum lot size applies to this. Like if I was going to build this building, then yeah, there's no way this would be able to be built today with the, you know, shoreline zone that we have, but it is a grandfathered building that's existing. So I believe it doesn't apply.
And the retail shops aren't a non-conforming use. So you're not changing a non-conforming use to another non-conforming use.
Okay. So from my perspective, I guess I'll say this. After reading these things And really, I'm kind of hanging my hat on the fact that it says may be built on without the need for, and then going on, that since this is an existing building in this case, the way I'm reading this is that the state minimum lot size law this part does not apply because it's an existing building. That's the way I'm reading it.
I would agree with that.
I would too.
So we may not be in all agreement on that, but if that is the case, let's see. Are we okay to move forward, or is there too much consternation about that?
I would suggest we move forward.
Okay. All right. Okay, moving ahead. What other questions do we have for Adam regarding this permit proposed, this application?
I don't have a question for Adam, but I have a question for the board and Gary. And Peter, accuse me of making a mountain out of a molehill if you want, but I'm committed to adhering to the ordinance. Does the lot coverage standard, in other words, the 20% of lot area within the shoreland zone, on page 30, paragraph 4 at the bottom, apply? If it does, we have 14,600 square feet of unvegetated area. That's about 69% coverage.
Yeah, but nothing's changing out there, right?
Well, see, again, I'm interpreting this ordinance differently than the rest of you because the land use standards apply to all land use activities. It doesn't matter if it's a non-conforming lot or not.
Or existing, doesn't matter if it's existing.
Right.
I mean, the building's already there.
Right.
Everything's all in place, so none of that's gonna change. So how are you gonna change how are you gonna change that?
I don't know.
He's
That's what
not adding to it.
That's why I'm asking whether it's applicable.
Well, personally, I think it is applicable, but that's why I said earlier, I think this is a non-conforming lot because there's way too much impervious surface. I think that's what makes it non-conforming. But it says for non-conforming uses, non-conforming lots, the whole point of non-conforming is that you can do something on it, just don't make it more non-conforming. And from my perspective, and when it says don't make it more non-conforming, it says go through all the standards in the ordinance. So I went through all the standards, and from my perspective, the standard that is key in making it not more non-conforming is the impervious surface. So as long as he doesn't increase the impervious surface, in other words, if we require any kind of exterior development, be pervious pavement or something similar, I think it's fine. Because it does say for non-conforming structures, it just can't be more, the planning board can approve development as long as it's not more non-conforming. And so I think we can approve it even though he's non-conforming, because he's not going to make it more non-conforming.
This is Peter.
Yep.
So, okay, George, where were you going with this particular point you're bringing up with the 20%? He's under the 20, he's under the, you know, he hasn't reached the 20, the 80% yet.
No, it's the other way around, Peter. You can't have more than 20% lot coverage in
Okay.
unvegetated
So
area.
all right, so he's at the 69% is the lot coverage right now?
In unvegetated area, yeah. I mean, it's a large building,
Right,
and
right.
there's
Right, so,
Gravel.
okay, all right, so he can't really increase the impervious stuff at all, he's not doing that. So why are you bringing it up?
well, at a minimum, it means that he can't put it may mean that he can't put on that entranceway.
Okay,
Well,
No.
I take that back. That's why I asked you about the concrete.
It's already pavement. It's already pavement now. So if you're already if you're over 20% coverage, you know, technically you can cover that entire driveway and everything because that's already impervious structure. So I'm just taking impervious structure and covering with more impervious structure.
Yeah, no, I can see that point.
I mean, that's really a huge holdup. Then I won't go all the way out at 4 feet. I'll come out a foot, which is the overhang of the building. But I should be able to cover. I can come out, 10 feet because I think that's like 9 feet wide or something, and it goes all the way out and makes that arch. Which actually the state came and repaved most of that, last summer.
can I respond to that? Well, let's say if you wanted to come out, what you want to come out, you increase it more, all right? Could you turn around and take some part of the lot and turn it into grass? It's impervious, to make it pervious? I
You
mean,
wouldn't be increasing it.
Correct.
if that's an obstacle we have, or someone has,
That's really not an obstacle.
okay.
I see the point of your question though, Pete. That's interesting.
Well, that's a slippery slope to go down because I would say that any place that, it's already existing in shoreline zone that has like a 30% lot coverage, if we want to build, a structure on that and you require them to revegetate something where they're not increasing that impervious surface, nothing's changing. It's a roof going out over an impervious surface that's existing. So it's not like I'm adding anything over any additional impervious. I'm just taking it, I'm just covering it. I mean, if you want to see some gutters on it or something, that's, not a problem. Or crushed stone in that one section, definitely agree on that.
So this gets back to my first question for you, Gary. Why the hell is this even before the planning board? The only reason I can think of at the moment now is after all this discussion is it's the addition of the roof over the entranceway.
No, it says if a retail space, it says if you add a different use and it's retail, then it requires planning board approval under the commercial development review. I
Correct.
believe.
Yes, that's very
Right.
correct. The only reason, and it's the same thing I was trying to put through last meeting, the only reason I am here is to ask if I can do business in the village, to be blunt about it. Because if that space was already there, this building's already set up for a second floor. When it was built, it was permitted for a second floor for retail space. They just never put it in, unfortunately. Because if it was already in, I wouldn't have to go to the planning board to have a permit to go in there because it was originally for boat sales, which is retail. So really what I'm asking the planning board for is to put in floor space, taking up airspace for an existing building that had an existing permit back in the 80s for retail space to add a retail shop for. All I need permission from the planning board is to say, can I put in a retail shop in the village in this space without touching anything on the outside other than some signs. I'd love to have an entranceway, but if for some reason that's a huge deal, which I don't see where it is because I'm not increasing the nonconformity of the lot, is the main reason why we're here. And Gary and I talked about it for a little while, but it spells out because it's retail, I have to get planning board approval to put this business in the village.
That's correct.
I mean, it's not an expansion of a non-conforming structure because it's not a non-conforming structure. It's more than 100 feet back from the water.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so just wanted to point out, let's see, the application that I'm seeing in front of me does not have some information at the top, application number, map, lot, or certified contractor number. Want to make sure that that is put on there.
Yeah,
That was right.
just no digging, but I'd be the 798 would be the certified contractor.
Because that's one Adam Gardner.
Right.
All right. I just want to make sure we put that on record, though. So for the planning board, are we? I know we've had some varying points of view on things, but George, I want to in particular make sure that there's some comfort level, even if we do disagree on some things. Have we addressed the major concerns?
Yeah, I have to admit, I talked to my wife about this, and she's no longer a practicing municipal attorney, but she does interpret this as a change of at least two uses, if not three, and that the lot size would apply, but I think we should move on. She's not a practicing attorney at this point in time, and that's why I had suggested getting the legal opinion. That's okay. We should move on. I'm going to vote against this, but because I'm not convinced this is legal, but
Okay.
not that, and again, to be clear for you, Adam, it's not that I'm opposed to the concept. Actually, I think it's very consistent with the comprehensive plan and what's going on in the village. I agree with Craig that it may be require some changes to both the minimum lot size ordinance and these minimum lot size standards in the shoreline zoning.
Right, but the way you're interpreting it would mean that if they sold that building, say they sold it to me and I want to put in a retail shop, that you would be saying that that would not be considered a commercial building anymore.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is you're changing it from one type of use, commercial use, to another commercial use. But let's drop this because we're wasting time. You're going to get your permit. Everybody's going to vote for it except for me. That's just the way it's going to be.
All right.
Okay, so I would entertain, are there any other questions for the applicant about this? I would entertain a motion on this application.
So just, Peter, there's findings of facts that we go through for the commercial ordinance and the subdivision, but I've not done a shoreline zoning. So are you going to go through standards, or is it just thumbs up, thumbs down? What's the procedure?
We would eventually get to a vote, thumbs up, thumbs down. Typically, we would have addressed any questions about standards in our conversations like we've done.
Okay, so that's, all right. So then I have one other question about signs, because you are adding signs, Adam. And there is a section on size of the signs and lighting and stuff. The lighting seems fine, but I just wasn't sure about the size.
I think they're the same as the existing one. The one that says Carter Marine would stay, and it's like 3 by 5 feet or so. And then there'd be another 3 by 5 on the building, and one on the right, which would be a little bit smaller, 2 by 3 maybe.
Okay,
But nothing like out front. Nothing like how they had like the Belgrade Lakes Village sign out front. Nothing like that. Everything would be on the building itself.
right.
And the existing sign will be retained? The one at the
Yes, yeah, same spot, same location up top.
So Mac, does that address your concern about signs?
Yep.
Any other questions for the applicant? If none, at this point, I'd entertain a motion on this application.
I move that we approve it with the condition that any further development not have impervious surface. So I don't know how you want to word it, but any further surface construction on the exterior would have to be pervious pavers or some kind of pervious construction, so it does not increase impervious surface. I know he's putting parking spaces, and you said you're not going to do anything, but I would just like to have a condition that once you get there and start moving things around, you know, if you do want to put something more firm, that it be pervious.
Thanks for that motion and condition. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Craig seconds. I did bring up the idea that we need the certified contractor number, which Adam provided verbally. I just want to make sure the town has that written on the application. I guess I would like to add a condition to the motion, if I may, and that information is supplied to the town. So Mac, is it acceptable to you that I do that?
Yep.
Okay. So we have two conditions on there. Craig, are you okay with that I've added that condition?
Yes.
Thank you.
Peter, what's the second condition? I didn't quite follow that.
That the DEP contractor number is supplied to the town.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yep. For the record, I like to see the data all there before we do business. That would just clean stuff up. So that's something I would prefer in all cases. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, we'll do a roll call. George?
No.
No. Craig?
Yes.
Mac?
Yes.
Pete Sargent?
Yes.
Peter Rushton says yes. So that would be 4 in favor, 1 opposed, none abstained. Okay, so that's that one. So Adam, that permit would be mailed to you
Thank you.
once you meet the find the information condition.
Yeah, I can come in tomorrow and fill it out.
Okay. All right, that's the, okay, so next on the agenda, I think we go back to Adam Gardner, the GPM properties. This is the commercial application. Where were we with that one?
I have the list of what was missing from the last one, if that helps you out at all.
Yes, that will.
I mean, in order, I had the lease, which was missing, it should all be pretty much in order. I don't know how they got cut up and scanned and sent to you, but the lease was there for 10 years. And then should have been followed by the shoreline zoning map. It should be in the, there's two. I did a picture of the legend and also of the village. If you actually look on it where the arrow is, it just barely cuts through that lot. And if you reference that to the site plan, you'll see where Annie Dunbar has the 250 foot, actually 250 foot from Great Pond and Long Pond literally meet, I think they're in the street right in front of that building. So the shoreline zone map's actually fairly accurate at the 250 feet.
So Adam, that's I'm kind of scrolling down through the PDF that we have here. So is that the black and white or?
You know, I never even opened it up when Nick sent that out, to be honest.
Okay, forgive me. I was trying to get to the same spot where you were talking. That's all.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
I see the deed. Looks like or description.
On the copy I have, Peter, there's two maps. One, they're both colored. So that the shoreline zoning is yellow on the actual map, and then the legend, yellow corresponds to limited commercial on the next page.
Okay.
I just looked at the scan I sent out. That should be in color as well.
Okay.
Yeah, mine's in color as Mac described it.
Fantastic. Let's keep going then.
So a shoreline zone map, the shoreline zone permit was the next on the list, which you just went over.
Mhm.
The site plan, which there should have been a small copy, and it should have been a full 2436 copy. But also with that, we sent the DOT copies that shows the entrances to the piece of property, both of them. And then let's see, the access to public streets. That's the one I know Mac and I went back and forth on. There's just a small write up on that. Why I don't believe that. All right, well, I believe is exempt. We don't need to deal with that. So I'm just getting to that email to open it up. So I don't know if they're all in order. The fire chief, I saw the email go out, but I don't know if Dan. I mean, I talked to him separately via email. I don't know if he got back to the planning board. I didn't see anything back on, at least through my email.
I haven't heard back from either.
Okay, I have a personal one that he sent back and said it wouldn't be a problem. So, like, but you said it was something the planning board's going to take care of. So I did not submit the letter that I have. I can gladly print it or forward it. And then that leaves two items was the lighting. Which took me a little bit, but I did convert it to candle power. I limited it to certain looms, so that way we can actually pick out the correct bulbs to make sure it meets what we're going to do. And then the HHE 200 plans was what I had on my list.
Right. That's consistent with what I had on mine.
Okay. I see. Thank you, Adam.
You're welcome.
Okay. So having received this information, then I think the only thing that we don't have based on what we just talked about was the letter or the notification or the word from the fire chief that that's okay. Adam said he could forward it if you want to. I'm asking the board, how do we feel about the completeness of the application at this time?
I would say the application's complete. yeah, we're, still don't have a response from the fire chief. But I don't think that's a reason not to proceed.
I would agree with that assessment. Craig, Mac, Pete, what are your thoughts?
I think we should go on. I'm fine with it.
Yes, we can move ahead, sure.
Same.
Okay. All right. So I think at this point, from a process perspective, we would consider, if we consider it complete, I think we would take a motion on this, right? Planning board members help me out, because I think we get to a spot where we say, we consider this complete or not.
You're correct.
Yeah, that's how we've done it in the past.
So I would entertain a motion then.
I would make a motion that we find the application complete with future receipt of response from the fire chief.
I second.
Thank you, George. And Craig, thank you for seconding. Any more discussion on this? All those in favor, roll call. George,
Yes.
Mac,
Yes.
Pete Sargent.
Yes,
Oh, and Craig, you just popped up again.
Yes.
And Pete Rushton, yes. So that would be, right, 5 in favor, none opposed. So that passes, though it's a complete application. Are we now to findings of fact?
Peter, I have a few, we know we have a complete application for the most part, but I do have a couple of at least one question with regard to the actual text of the application.
Okay,
I don't know if this is the appropriate time or not, but
I think it is.
it's actually a pretty minor question, or at least my first one is. Adam, on question number 32, it has to do with storage of equipment and machinery, and but also waste collection containers. And you said you were going to be having, at the last meeting, you said you would be having a dumpster, and you had answered that question as no. If there's going to be a dumpster, then we need to talk a little bit about how it'll be screened from view, unless
Right.
it's going to be back behind the building somewhere where nobody can see it.
There actually won't be a dumpster. Man was gonna haul the trash to my dumpsters. I had dumpsters at my shops, so I was gonna haul it back and it all goes in there. Sorry. Yeah, so there won't be any cans outside, any dumpsters, anything like that. So it'll be very minimal trash coming out of there. Maybe a bag a week or so. But yeah.
Okay, thanks. That answers that for me.
Yep.
Any other, George, did you have another question?
Give me a minute. Go ahead to somebody else.
Okay, Mac, do you have any questions about the application that you'd like to ask Adam?
No.
Okay, thank you. Let's see.
I take that back.
Craig?
I take that back. I did have one question about the subsurface wastewater. I guess I'm a little confused because you have 3 parking spaces delineated right above the leach field.
Yep. So it's a concrete chamber. So the tank itself you can actually drive on top of. So it's a reinforced concrete tank. And the one chamber, the H20, it's same thing. You park a car on top of it. So it'll be all grass right there, just as it is right now.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mac.
Peter.
Yes.
I would just point out on question 52 on page 18 wasn't answered. I mean, I think it's a simple oversight, but
Right.
will the proposed activity discharge pollutants to any surface water bodies or groundwater, including by way of subsurface waste disposal? It just wasn't answered,
Okay.
at least not on the copy I have.
Correct. Not on mine either.
I would go with no because it's all inside. Like it's one of those that unfortunately, same thing we're seeing everywhere. There's no real guidelines in any of these places to say, what if you add an existing business inside a place with minimal impact? So I'd go with no on that answer.
Okay. So I don't know how to do this exactly, but I'm going to make a suggestion. Typically, when we're physically with each other, we would say, "Hey, Adam, come up and pen it in here, date." We can't do that virtually. Would you be willing to go to the town office and edit that and fill in that, please?
Yes.
All right.
I can do that tomorrow if it's ready. That's not a problem.
Okay. And so add in, please, and appropriately, and then initials and date, please. And Nick, would you be so kind as to help him out when we do that?
Yeah, I'll have it ready. Adam.
Thank you.
Thank you. One of the oddities about operating virtually, it's board, are there other questions that have come up as we go through this commercial review application?
Peter, I found a couple other items that were left blank in the application.
Okay.
Questions 55 and 56. Well, blank, sort of not blank. Adam's response, both of them have to do with, well, the first 55 has to do with total area of impervious, total impervious area. And the second has to do with total square feet of disturbed area. And he responded same as existing, except that the answer was to be in square feet. I don't know how the whole board feels about that. I mean, I calculated it. It's about 1332 square feet for both of them, but maybe same as existing is good enough.
So Adam, so let me tell you my answer on this. As I mentioned before, I like the data there because it's then fair for anybody who looks at it. If you would be so kind as when you go in tomorrow to fill out the other 52, I think it was.
Yep.
Square foot value in both 55 and 56, please.
Yeah, I can fill those out. I just put in there for the same, or as the record that it wasn't going to change. So if it did change down the road, they could come back to see it. But I can fill those two in.
And I
if it's
appreciate
easier.
that. And I understand your point too about putting it in that way. I get it. Just add this other value and I think we'll be good.
Okay.
So for the board and for Adam to hear, I'm looking at number 60. Number 60 says no, not changing, as Adam, you've described, and I totally understand this, what you're saying. I just want to make sure we're all clear, right? It says note, if your response to question is no, then it goes on to say, and the development proposed exceeds a certain amount of disturbed area or exceeds, some amount of impervious surfaces or et cetera, you include a stormwater and phosphorus control plan. Are we all satisfied about how this applies to Adam in this case?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not applicable for the same reasons it's not applicable, wasn't applicable under the shoreline zoning ordinance.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. I just wanted to have that stated out loud because that's the way I was thinking. Then we get into other things. Okay. All right, from a process perspective, if we have, do we have any more questions for the applicant on this? Anybody?
No,
No? And we have considered this complete and we have no more questions. Are we at the point we would go through the findings of fact?
I believe you guys do that after I made all the abutters aware. You guys make a decision at the next meeting. Is how I think we did in the past. If not, just let me know.
Yeah, because the ordinance requires us to notify only after we have a complete application.
Correct. Thank you. Thanks. It's a great reminder. Okay. So if that's the case, we've voted on the fact that this is a complete application. We've addressed some concerns and asked some things of Adam. He has some action items to take place with the town tomorrow. Is there any more activity with this application tonight?
I just have a question for Gary, looking ahead to the next meeting when we go through the findings of fact and law. Gary, have you determined whether, this is very similar to my question on the shoreline zoning ordinance, except that it is under the minimum lot size ordinance. Will this be able to meet the land use standards for a change of use on page 4? In particular, that at the bottom there, land use standards 5A, and in particular, I'm most concerned about the road frontage. There's 104 feet of road frontage, and the ordinance specifies 200. So that's a question that we'll need an answer to at the next meeting.
So are we saying that we would like to get Gary's input on this in advance of the next meeting?
No, I'm saying it's a question that I will have at the next meeting, and I wanted to give Gary a heads up.
Okay. Thank you for doing that.
Did you hear that, Gary?
So hang on, George. I can see that Gary's here. He's muted at this time. I want to make sure that he's aware of that because that's an important aspect of this going forward. Absent of hearing from Gary, I'd like to turn to Nick. I see. Would you help convey that information to Gary?
Yeah, I was gonna say, George, if you just repeat a little bit of that so I can write it down, just that way I can definitely get it to Gary.
So my question has to do, again, with the applicability of the minimum lot size ordinance. And this all, of course, it goes back to the finding that we have to make that this is in conformance with all other town ordinances. And we've already determined that it is with shoreline zoning. But we need to do likewise for the minimum lot size ordinance. And Gary administers that. So hence my question for Gary. And it has to do with the land use standards on page 4, at the bottom page 5A1, change of use. And also, and that then leads to a question of, does this meet the standard for road frontage on page 10 under paragraph D? Or is that not applicable?
All right, I got that. And I know Gary, when he's at his house, his connection's a little wonky, so that's probably why he's not able to speak.
Okay, yeah. I obviously, if he, wants to get in touch with me to spell that out more, I can, but I just thought that way he could look into it and think about it a little bit.
Yeah, one comment on that. If you read page 10, commercial use, it says have lot area 60,000, but the 200 feet of frontage is on road frontage on a public or a privately owned road. There's actually, the 100 feet across the front, 125 down each side, 68 in the back, and 68 in the front. So you just hung up on the road frontage. There's technically 1, 2, 3, 450, almost 500 feet of road frontage on that building because it's private. Well, there's a road that goes all the way around it, which would be considered a private road.
That's a good question. Is it cumulative or?
Typically, yeah. So like on other structures, like if I've run into this before, like if I have a lot on the water and the road cuts down the middle of it, and they'll say the road's 200 feet, and they say, well, you can only have one dwelling, but there's 4 acres. Well, technically, no, there's 400 feet of road because there's 200 feet of road on each side of the lot. So that's considered 2 separate lots, 2 separate buildable dwellings because it's 400 feet of road frontage. Because we've also, on other properties, created artificial road as a conveyance down the road. I think we talked to Gary. I'm glad you talked to Gary about it. That they've created that. Belgrade has allowed that, where certain other towns don't, but you can create that road frontage. But here, I think we easily meet that side of it. But again, I believe this is if you're adding a new structure. But I'll definitely reach out to him before the next meeting just to make sure we're clear.
Yeah, and I only bring it up because unlike the other ordinance, this is specific to change of use.
Right.
Very good. Okay, anything else for this application tonight? Hearing nothing, I think we want to make sure that we're clear that we're want to have the notification to the abutters going out. And I think, Adam, I'm thinking you've talked to Gary, and we've talked a little bit in our last meeting, that from a scheduling perspective, to have you on the next planning board meeting. Is that correct?
That was my assumption on, is it the 1st, I believe, October 1st?
Sounds right. Yeah, the second, yeah.
That's correct. October 1st.
Okay. Just look at the schedule for the time. Are they doing meetings beforehand?
I would turn to Nick or Gary to inform us on that.
Okay.
Okay, so that's going to be one agenda item for that next meeting. Okay, so are we okay to move on to the next agenda item for tonight? Because I think we've covered everything with Adam tonight. Does everybody feel comfortable?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good
Yes,
night.
you as well. All right. Next on the planning board agenda, we have a subdivision application in front of us. Okay. Hi, are you Bill D? Bill Desmond, perhaps?
I am. How you guys doing?
Good. Thank you for your time this evening.
Yours too.
You're very welcome. And please bear with us as we go through this application. I'm sure we'll have questions for you as we go along.
Great.
And we do have some abutters that have been notified who have joined. And there may be questions from the audience as well. Okay. Does everybody have the subdivision application? Planning board, I'm seeing nods from Mac.
Yes.
Yes, George, yes. Greg stepped away for a minute. Okay. Let's get into it a little bit. Pardon me, I'm going to go to the subdivision ordinance. Is this what's considered a minor subdivision?
Right.
3 lots, correct? Okay. Hang on, please. Okay, application. Okay. Okay, I think the first order of business is to go through the application to look to see if it is complete. And after we have done that, then we can go on.
Peter, I was wondering if I could ask Mr. Desmond a question.
Yes.
Because as you may know from driving by there all the time, there's a residence on one of the 3 lots being created. And I just want to make sure this is truly a subdivision that requires approval by the town.
Okay.
Mr. Desmond, that existing house, that's not your principal residence. It looks abandoned actually at this point, but
No, not my not my residence. I own the house. I plan on fixing it, but not living there.
okay. All right.
Is that the ranch? Is that the ranch that's across from the Hazlett's property? Is that where I am talking?
I believe so.
Okay, thanks.
Just north of J&R Frames.
Gotcha. Yep.
I only ask because there's an exemption if that lot was his permanent residence for the last 5 years. It would have been exempt.
It's an excellent point, and I'm really glad you brought that up.
Thanks for looking out for me.
Actually, I'm lazy. That's the problem. See?
It's getting late too. I understand.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Then, so if we've cleared that question and we know that this should be in front of us and is not exempt, then I think then our first order of business is to make sure that we are satisfied with the completeness of the application. Let's do that, shall we? Starting at the top. And Mr. Desmond, we don't do these a lot. So forgive me if I'm feeling rusty, please.
That's my first one. So
Okay. Name of the property owner is Bella Casa out of Micmac Lane in Wyndham, Maine. The applicant, William Desmond, from the same address in Wyndham. If the applicant is a corporation, check if licensed in Maine. You said yes. Name of applicant, same. Name of land surveyor. You had K&K surveyors in Oakland.
yes,
Supplied information from them. Number 6, person and address to which all correspondence should go, and that's to William Desmond. Pardon me as I'm looking at you, also off to the document on another monitor.
no problem.
Thank you. Number 7, And planning board members, if I'm going too fast or too slow, please let me know. I'm now on page 2. 7, what legal interest does this person have? They are the owner. Number 8, what interest does the applicant have in any abutting property? And that answer is there is none. You have no interest in the abutting property.
No.
Let's see. I'm now on 9. Location of property. The values input are, looks like book 505, page 0127, tax map 10, lot 40. Question number 10, is any portion of the property within 250 feet of a high water mark of a pond, river, or stream? The answer is no. Number 11, acreage to be developed, 4.47 acres. 12, indicate the nature of the restrictive covenants to be placed. Mr. Desmond, you said there are none, so you plan to have no restrictive covenants or anything?
Correct.
Number 13, has the land been prior approved subdivision? You've answered no. Number 14, identify existing uses of land, and you've indicated residential home. Does the parcel include any water bodies? The answer is no. Is any portion of the property within a special flood hazard area as identified on FEMA map? You've answered no. Which is good, because at that elevation, we'd have other troubles if that were. List below the names of and mailing addresses of abutting property owners and owners across the road. So you've got Lois Hazlett, 347 Oakland Road, and John Endicott, 1 Oakland Road.
Peter, I wanted to ask about that. I was just looking at the survey drawing, and it to the east or southeast indicates a Joanna and Jack Roberts, and then to the north, excuse me, I'm getting all confused here. To the southwest is Joanna and Jack Roberts, and to the northeast, it indicates John L. Wood as owners of the abutting those parcels of land, and they're not listed here. And and this is a July 2020 drawing, so I don't know if there's a disconnect between it and the actual ownership, or maybe you can explain that, Mr. Desmond.
Sure. I took the ownership information off the town map there in the office. And on that map, it shows that John Endicott goes all the way around me. And then across the street was Hazel. So I guess that's a good question. I don't know. On this map that I have here, it indicates John Wood also. So I guess that they probably need to be, if something's changed since the town map, again, my first time doing this, if something's changed since the town map that you guys have on record, then I guess I need to inform those people as well. But
Yeah, Endicott may have sold some property.
Correct.
But can Nick check that? He's right there.
Give me
Peter?
that one.
Peter, could I interrupt?
Hi, Lois. Yes.
There's another property owner on the north side of him.
So would that be not John? Oh wait, not John Wood.
No, it's Bernice Tardif. And I don't know whether, maybe it's in a son's name or something like that. I don't know, but Bernice lives on the other side.
Ah, okay. Thank you. So I think we need to have some.
Craig's question.
What's that?
I was just wondering if Nick could, he kind of got cut off, if he could answer your question.
Oh, I'm looking right now. Give me just a sec or two.
Okay. So perhaps while Nick is looking up some information, I just want to state that it sounds like for number 17, we will need to have some more information supplied there. So, Mr. Desmond, do you understand what we're asking?
I do.
It does look like both those people still own those properties. So those are two other people that need to be notified. This is according to our tax records.
So John Wood,
So yeah, John Wood and Joanne and Jack Roberts.
okay.
And Nick, to honor what Lois Hazlett was saying, was that there's a Bernice Tardif, I think, who's perhaps viewed as another abutter.
Where would she be? Doesn't make, based on the map of the town and this map, I don't see where, unless she's a relative of John Wood or something, I don't see where she would own property. We've got all four sides covered right now.
Okay. So I don't know that answer. I just want to make sure I'm honoring the question that Mrs. Hazlett brought up.
Sure.
And she did offer that it could be under someone else's name. So I just wanted to make sure we're being complete.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
Let me just look that up real quick.
yeah, just for me, so I cross all my T's and dot all my I's. I'm not sure how to find her, but
Well, it could also be Lois owns across the road from you. So
Mhm.
maybe she doesn't, maybe Lois does not own all the land across the road, maybe.
oh,
The other-
well, on the map it looked like that, but I guess it depends on what's across the road too. Looked like her property pretty much covered the full length of my property for the most part, if I remember correctly, Lois. I'm not sure.
Would you like for me to answer?
Sure. I mean, I would.
Yeah, now I own all across from both Bernice's property and across from your property. And to my knowledge, Bernice and John Tardif owned the property up to the Burton house. I moved here in '67 when the Burtons were all living there. So I think that she still owns the property, but it could be in a grandchild or some
Sure.
other name.
Is that on the north side, did you say?
Yes, on
Okay.
on the
So the
road.
one that's showing John Wood is where you think her property should be?
It must be because
Okay.
I know that Endicott is behind her. It's back behind her. Down, where the Endicott Road goes in down there.
Yes.
Well, she owns on both sides of that camp road that goes in.
Okay.
And she owns down to where it abuts the old Burton property. She has owned that for some time.
Thanks for that, Lois. I appreciate that. That's helpful.
It might be that they added that little piece that's out kind of in front of my house later on, and that never got updated on the map. That probably happens sometimes, doesn't it?
Sure.
Yeah, because the town map doesn't look anything like, well, I shouldn't say doesn't look anything like this, but the town map indicates John Endicott owns all the way around me.
No, he doesn't.
So, okay,
So I'll fix that.
thank you. And I think by working, perhaps, doing some investigation there at the town office, I can't volunteer Nick's time, because he's a very busy man, but he is also a great resource. So I would direct you to him. All right.
Yeah, if you come on down, I can help you out.
Great, thank you.
And so I would just want to say that in reference to question number 17, as long as that is complete with the list of any or all of the abutters, that's what we're looking for, right?
Correct.
Okay. All righty. Moving along, we have next 18, general information. 18, number of lots or units. You've indicated 3. Anticipated date for construction. There's no value placed there.
Correct.
So I guess I would have a question at this point. Do you just want to divide so for lots not have construction too? Is that correct?
At this point in time, yeah, I've got to finish the house. That's going to take me a significant amount of time, so I can't give you an active date on what will happen with the other lots. The north side of that lot, the north side of the house, has some pretty nice trees and things on it. So my hope is when I sell the house to offer that to the person who purchases the home, so that they may be, saved and intact and all of that, rather than having somebody mow them down to build a house in there.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And so without a date for construction, then we would not know a date for completion. So that's left with no value.
If anybody's ever built a
Identify the
home, I
method.
can tell you that it's going to be longer than expected.
Yeah. 21, identify the method of water supply. Individual wells, you've indicated. 22, identify method of sewage disposal. Individual septic tanks is what you've indicated.
Correct.
23, identify method of fire protection for proposed development. We have choices: dry hydrants, existing fire pond, or other. Please state alternative. And we have nothing checked off on here.
I didn't know what to do there. I spoke with Gary about it, and that's how we decided to leave it.
Okay.
Probably be alternative fire department, right?
I didn't think there was a check mark that really fit my specific situation.
Yep. So I like, Craig, what you've said. So if I could just spell that out a little bit, if you checked other and then please state alternative, you could write fire department, because we have a Belgrade fire department.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And it would be that simple. Craig, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but were you thinking the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's something that we would need information on.
Added to my list.
Number 24, does the applicant propose to dedicate to public any roads, recreation, or common lands? And indicated no in each of those cases. 25, does the applicant intend to request waivers of any of the subdivision submission requirements? You've indicated no, that you do not intend to request waivers. And 26, submission, the pre-app sketch plan shall show in simple sketch form the proposed layout of the streets, lots, and other features in relation to the existing conditions. The sketch plan, which may be a freehand pencil sketch, should be supplemented with general information to describe or outline the existing conditions of the site and the proposed development. It is recommended that a sketch plan be superimposed or accompanied by a copy of the assessor's map on which the land is located. The sketch plan shall be accompanied by a copy of a portion of the USOS topographic map of the area showing the outline of the proposed subdivision, unless the proposed subdivision is less than 10 acres in size. It sounds like yours is, right?
Yes.
Okay. right. I know. It's,
No, I'm doing the same thing.
I hope it's not my handwriting.
No,
no, you're,
sideways on us.
yeah. So I'm gonna, here we go. And here's your information about your company from Secretary of State. It looks as though you have indications from DOT that you'll be receiving driveway permits.
Yes.
And that was a couple weeks ago. Did you receive them yet?
In fact, I emailed him, I think 3 days ago, and he said I should be receiving them anytime. I guess it's a separate process after they approve it. It goes to another body of people that actually do the permits. And he said they're backed up right now, just like the vehicle title section in the state of Maine. It takes a little longer than normal, I guess.
Okay.
But the email should indicate that they're approved, and he went out and in fact, one of them was done by the town when they redid that road last year.
So what I'm doing, Mr. Desmond, I'm on page 12 of our ordinance. I'm just looking at the submissions area. Let's see. Well, before I go any further, for the board members, I'm on page 12. And we've looked at the application well, we've been looking at what he submitted so far. We would like to be able to determine if it's complete. And then I was thinking about going down to section 6.3 where it says we're supposed to have some things submitted to us. Does the board feel comfortable if we start going through those things?
I think we need to determine that we have a complete application.
Complete, right. Then after we do that, I was thinking the same thing. After we do that, we need to decide if a hearing is required, right? Then I'm going back up to 12, I'm sorry, 5, I'm on page 12. It would be, I'm sorry, Article 6, 6.2, paragraph E, right? So let's go through the submission requirements. So do we have a proposed name of the subdivision?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a field survey of the boundary lines of the tract, giving complete descriptive data, bearings, distances, etc.?
Have monuments, Mr. Desmond, have monuments been placed in the various corners of the lots?
Some were existing. The front ones, he hasn't placed yet, but the back line and the north and south borders were there existing. He just went through to make sure they were all correct. I guess when Mr. Endicott did something with his property some years ago, that was all surveyed, so they went off the existing. You are talking about the pins and things for the,
Yes.
yeah,
Right.
okay.
So for the board, and in the distant history of the board, knowing that there were pins in place was a big thing for us. I guess I'm going to ask right now, based on the information that we've received, is a site visit required?
For what?
Boots on the ground experience? Do we not want to? Do we feel comfortable with what we've been told about the pins being in place?
Well, the border pins, right? You wouldn't place the pins for the separate lots until it's approved, correct?
Right, just the border pins.
Yeah, I'm fine with them being, I'll take it. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
I don't think we need a site visit for that.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm asking because,
Not solely for this. I guess I'd like to reserve judgment on that until we get through the rest of the materials, the
okay,
rest of rest of the submissions.
okay,
Yeah, what George said.
gotcha. Okay, great.
Hey, George. Good point.
Yep. So that was the question about the field survey, boundary lines and tract. Okay. Oh, wait, a field survey. So do we does the town have that? The field survey?
I assume that's what this is.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at too. Yeah. All right.
I shouldn't say assume. I should say that's what this is.
I see you're holding up a small one there. You guys got the bigger ones I sent over via Nick, right? The larger
Yeah, I got
plans?
the office, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yep.
We just get the reduced ones. We don't
okay, just wanted to make sure.
count enough to get the big ones.
And number 3, a copy of the deed from a survey was based, a copy of all deed restrictions, easements, rights of way, or other encumbrances currently affecting the property. So do we have a copy of the deed?
I did not provide a copy of the deed. That
Okay,
wasn't, as far as I know,
please
that
mark
wasn't on
that
the
as,
list.
that's,
Go ahead.
just so you know, Mr. Desmond, I'm on page 13 of our ordinance, so it's number 3.
Okay.
So that we will need.
Tell me what it is again, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Oh, copy of the deed.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
4, a copy of any deed restrictions intended to cover all or part of the lots in the subdivisions. Sounds like you intend to have none.
Correct.
Number 5, test pit analyses prepared by a licensed site evaluator shall be provided. A map showing the location of all test pits dug on the site shall be submitted. Do we have
Those
that?
are- Yes,
That's on the survey, because I think I saw the,
the locations are on the map survey, and then the soils makeup or tests were copied and put in with what I gave.
I see. Okay,
Should be 2 test pits. He did all 3 for me, but the 2 test pits are for the 2 lots.
okay. I'm seeing TP number 1 and TP number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Number 6, a plan for the disposal of stormwater and surface drainage prepared by the Maine registered professional engineer. Do we have that?
No.
Okay, so we would need that.
What is it again?
So that would be a plan for the disposal of stormwater and surface drainage prepared by a Maine registered professional engineer.
So I gotta write this down. Plan for stormwater
And surface drainage.
prepared by a Maine.
Registered professional engineer.
Okay.
Peter, isn't there some guidance and more detail in the ordinance somewhere that might be helpful to Mr. Desmond?
Perhaps. Where are you thinking, George?
Well, I'm trying to find it. That's why I'm asking.
Because I was on page 12.
Yeah, no, I meant in the specific standards that describes what needs to be in that plan.
Oh,
I would-
I see. Yeah. Hang on, please. George, as we go forward, we get into the major subdivisions, so hang on. So perhaps, George, by going to Article 10, General Standards,
Oh, I found it. It's on page 39.
39, okay.
Yeah, 11.3 Stormwater Management Design Standards.
Page 39, 11.3.
Right.
But I got to assume that a Maine registered engineer must know what he's got to do, I would think, right?
I would think
Yeah.
so.
Should. I mean, this ordinance is somewhat dated, but, well, very dated, but they do these all the time.
Okay.
And also, just for your reference too, our ordinances are online. So if you grabbed one, you could point, your person to it and say, go to
This
that.
is what
That's what we're talking about.
sure. Thank you.
Sure. Good point. I'm sorry. Okay. Number 7, the date the plan was prepared, including a north point, graphic map scale, which we have,
Yeah, all that.
addresses of the record owner. I'm sorry. If I just said them out, will you guys tell me if they're there? So names and addresses of the record owner, the subdivider, and individual or company who prepared the plan, and the names of adjoining property owners.
All that's there.
Yep. Good.
We may need some additional adjoining property owners, but
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So once he verifies some of the data that the town can provide, that can be included. Number 8, a copy or portion of the county soil survey covering the subdivision. Do we have that?
I don't think so.
Now, it used to be we would have that information, I thought, in the town office. Does anybody from the town planning board remember that?
I know at one point I had obtained an extra copy and provided it to the town office just as they were stopping to publish them on paper. They are available online.
If you repeat what it is, I'll get a copy online.
Sure.
Yeah, should be available from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Soil Conservation Service.
So it's called the County Soil Survey.
County Soil Survey. Sorry, I need page 2 here. County Soil Survey.
Yep.
Okay.
So just so you know what that does, it says, hey, this is the type of stuff that's found where this subdivision is. It'll tell, soil stuff about what's found there.
Above and beyond the soils tests that were done.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Number 9 is a 10-foot interval contour lines showing elevations in relation to mean sea level. Do we have that?
I don't see any on the survey drawing.
I don't have any on the big map that I mean, I'm assuming there would be lines that look to be 10 foot apart.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, 10 feet of elevation apart.
Right.
Well, there are, I don't know, maybe I can show a section of this. Is it these lines, these numbers here?
That
get up further.
Out further?
That may be it.
It may be that the drawing that I have, because it's been reduced, simply doesn't show those.
Well, and the small one that I provided was before these plans were finished. That's why I brought the big ones by a week and a half ago or so that you'd have the accurate.
So we might have that then at the town office, is what you're saying.
The town office has copies of this paper right here, plus the Mylars already.
Okay. From my view of what you held up, it looked like that could be the contour lines that we're talking.
Yeah.
It looks like elevations to me when I look at it. They're blue lines and they all are similarly 390, 392, 394, 388.
So just for the record, am I understanding that my packet is not equivalent to the map, the big map that's in the town office? Nick, is that right?
Yes, the big maps, I'm guessing, are the final. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. The big maps are in here. I do not think are the same thing that you guys have. They're too big to scan too. So.
Yeah.
So
So
if you guys want to see them,
that's a problem.
Well, I dropped them off a week and a half ago, so you guys would have them. I just assumed you had them.
Yep. Well, I think you did everything that was asked from that perspective. I think Mac's point is when we operate virtually,
It's hard to know who's on what page,
Yeah. Exactly.
literally.
Okay, so the town has those, so thank you very much. Next, if any portion of the subdivision is in a flood-prone area, the boundaries of any flood hazard areas and the 100-year flood elevation shall be delineated on the plan. Are there any parts of that that are in a flood-prone area?
No, that doesn't apply, I don't think.
Okay. 11, additional information may be required for minor subdivisions located in sensitive sites, including location in the McGraw Pond or Salmon Lake watersheds, in areas of steep slope greater than 15% in the shoreline zone, or including wetlands or other important wildlife habitats. For such subdivisions, the appropriate submissions and standards for major subdivisions shall be required. So, are there any areas where this is proposed that meets any of these things listed or like that in number 11 here, planning board?
The southern lot does have some wetlands that have been delineated.
And that's where you said delineated wetland and you've pointed to it?
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
I don't know if it shows on the small map or not, but when the town did that road, or the state did that road a year and a half ago, they marked off some wetlands on the southern end of the southern lot.
Yep.
Peter?
So I don't know what the big map has, unfortunately, in the town office, and I'm sorry about that. But on my map, I'm a little confused because there's the culvert on that southern lot. There's a culvert that goes across the road, and then there's two lines that come out. And then inside those two lines, it says delineated wetland.
Yes, that's what I'm
I
talking about.
understand that the wetland covers like 60% of that lot.
No.
Okay, then what are those two lines coming out of the culvert?
I guess you'd have to see it on the bigger one, but that is delineated wetlands, but on the larger map, it is, sorry, bear with me. This is the lot here. There's your culvert and there's your wetlands, but the lot encompasses all of this to include.
Yeah.
All the way over to the edge of the house is right here. So from this point over to here is that southern lot. Everybody see that all right?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
So I think on the smaller map, the wetlands look bigger than they are, I believe.
Yes, and they're not really clear on the small map at all. What you just showed me was totally different, I
Yeah.
think.
It was very helpful.
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
wherever you are, I've kind of lost you. Oh, there you are. So the wetlands are also delineated on the National Wetlands Inventory. And they seem to be very similar to what Mr. Desmond just showed us. But in addition to that, in terms of important wildlife areas, some of the property of this subdivision, including the wetland area, has been mapped by Inland Fish and Wildlife as a deer wintering area.
I was going to ask about that because I know that some tracks I see often around that in that area.
Yeah, it heads from there north.
Plenty of stuff up there to eat.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
So I
So
think
if-
under that provision of the ordinance, I think those are two things that we'll need to consider.
Okay, I would agree. So Mr. Desmond, did you hear what we were just talking about?
I heard what you're talking about. I don't understand what it means for me yet.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try and jump in here and George fill in where I miss anything. Because that area has intersects with something that's been mapped as a deer wintering yard. That's an IF&W maps that out. That would be one of the things we'd want to see indicated on your plan, like where that is.
So add IFW.
Yeah, IFW. What's it called?
Inland fisheries,
Yeah, not that. I'm talking about the map.
Oh, it's beginning with habitat.
Beginning with
Thank you.
habitat?
Yep.
What habitat?
Beginning with habitat, it's a map that's available on their website.
Okay.
You go under Belgrade. Once you get
It
to
used to
that,
be just beginning
go
with
under Belgrade, you'll
habitat.org.
see several maps, and that'll be one of them.
I'm sorry, George, I missed that.
I was just going to say that if you go to their website and you know,
Oh, on the IFW website.
beginning with habitat, and then they have them by town, and I can't remember the exact name for this particular map, but there's only a handful of them. You'll see it.
Oh, fine. So are you indicating to me that you want that put on this plan here? You don't want it separate. You want it on this plan to show where those are on this plan, or can I print the other map and accompany it with it?
I don't want to incur more costs for you. I was just suggesting that it be made available as part of the submission.
Okay, so get a copy of that and put it in with the file.
In my opinion, I think that would be fine. I would turn to the other board members to see if that would be acceptable as well.
Would be.
I think it'd be acceptable.
Think so.
So add to file. I'll do that.
Bill, I just checked and it is, if you just go to beginningwithhabitat.org, that
Okay.
has everything you need.
Okay, great.
So
Thank
you
you.
don't have to try to find it on IF&W's site.
Great.
Thanks, Mac. Okay, so that's number 11. Number 12, a hydrogeologic assessment prepared in accordance with section 1011 by a certified geologist experienced in hydrology when any part of the subdivision is located over a sand and gravel aquifer. That was A. Or B, the subdivision contains lots less than 100,000 square feet in total area. Or C, the subdivision has an average density of less than 100,000 square feet per dwelling.
So that's 2.5 acres, roughly.
Thanks. So that would mean that would be required then, right? If I'm reading it right, Craig?
What it sounds like.
Yep.
Did it say each lot or the total of the subdivision?
See, B reads, the subdivision contains lots less than 100,000 square feet in total area.
So each lot less than 100,000 square feet?
Yes. I'm reading it. And is that the case with you?
Great question. Yeah, well, the big one is 164 plus square feet. That's the one with the wetlands on it. The one up top is, you know what? I don't have the top one for some reason on here, but it's on the ones at the town, of course. But I know that lot is smaller. If I do the math, no, I'm sorry. It's not listed here. I'd have to do the math on the
Okay.
on the lot here.
So just so you know what we're talking about. So where the subdivision contains lots that are less than 100,000 square feet, that's where we would need the geologic assessment.
Geologic assessment.
Yep. It's a
Oh.
hydrogeologic assessment prepared in accordance with section 1011 by a certified geologist experienced in hydrology.
Geologist. Can you give me the sections again? I'm sorry.
Sure.
1011?
Yeah, it says in accordance with section 1011.
As in 1011 or 10 period?
10.11.
10.11.
Because
Okay.
what that's referencing is in 10.11 of this subdivision ordinance in our town, which is the general standards section.
Okay.
Okay.
If under 100, if the lots are under 100,000 square feet.
Yes.
Okay.
And that was the last of the submission
Thank
requirements.
goodness.
I know it, really, right?
Wow. That's a lot for 3 house lots.
I know it. Okay, board members, we've gone through the submission requirements. I know in my mind, we had a couple things that we still need to get from Mr. Desmond, and he's nodding in agreement. So I would like to ask the board what they feel about the level of completeness of this application.
Well, we need a few more things.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
If it makes a difference.
Yep, it does.
So you were talking about selling a lot to somebody that buys a lot. Wouldn't it be just easier to combine them and just break them in 2 lots?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I know my understanding is you're in the middle of rewriting the subdivision ordinance, but Vern Pinney, the surveyor, tried to talk me out of doing 3 many, many times because he said this was going to be a arduous process. But Gary indicated to me that as long as I had the things that he gave me to together, it really wasn't going to be a big problem. But now I kind of see what Vern was talking about. So yeah, I mean, in hindsight, that might have been the easier way to go, but here we are. Like I said, my first time going through this, so
I think
I
Craig's
appreciate your
point-
thoroughness also.
Yeah, I think Craig's point is that if you did that and decided that up front, it wouldn't qualify as a subdivision, wouldn't
Right.
require approval.
Yeah, which is what Vern's been telling me all along, but I don't know that that'll come to fruition. I mean, it could be a situation where, whoever buys that house can't, if they're gonna buy that house in a lot, that means they're gonna have to come with some money in their pocket in order to make that happen. And, I don't know if we can count on that with everything going on. So I don't want to corner myself into that situation where I have to offer it that way.
Right. As long as you know.
Yes, thank you.
Peter, I have another question, and excuse my unfamiliarity with this ordinance, but we've asked for, and the ordinance asks for, mapping of the wetland. It asks for if there are any significant wildlife habitats, but I can't find, that information will be provided, but I can't find in the performance standards what we're supposed to do with that information. What are we supposed to require in the way of mitigation or anything else for that matter? I just can't find it in the ordinance. I don't know if somebody
It's
can
not
help me
there.
with that.
I think mitigation things aren't there necessarily.
I mean, it's great knowing that there's a deer yard there, but
Right.
for
Right,
what?
what's to stop me from destroying it, right?
Right.
Right.
Well, I don't think we require mitigation. I think the question is, if we know that it's there, does it mean that we will not approve the subdivision?
I'm not sure.
Or we could negotiate a redesign of the subdivision, but I would say the idea is, do we not approve the subdivision because it's has too many issues? I'm not saying we're going to do that.
No, I get what you're saying.
My interpretation.
But it may
Well,
not
I
be
think
that-
it would also depend on where it is. I mean, if it's in the middle of one of the lots, then I see where that's an issue. If it's in the back corner somewhere where nobody would build a house anyway, maybe it's not a bigger issue.
Right. No, I totally agree.
And it may not be that black and white either, because I know from experience dealing with inland fish and wildlife on other parcels that if you approach them, the regional biologists, they sometimes will come up with a means for the project to proceed without with some impact on the deer yard, but it starts with their inspection to make sure that the deer yard's worth protecting.
I'd be down for that. I'd be down for that. I'm all about low impact if possible.
And it may just be the tip of one portion of the lot out back there. I mean,
Maybe they're living in the house. It looks like they might be.
Well, I know it's hard to tell from the map that I printed out because I didn't do it at a real close detail scale.
I'll call them anyway and see what their input is. That'd be interesting for me to know anyway.
I know on my neighbor's logging operation, they allowed him, they suggested they gave him a percentage of the hemlock to cut that still allowed him to cut within the deer yard. Different kind of project, but still.
Yeah.
That was my point.
We all got to get along, even with the deer.
All right, so it sounds like we still have some more information to gather for a complete submission.
Mhm.
Are we in agreement on that, everybody?
yes.
A lot of, yeah.
Yes.
And the applicant, we've gone through these things, so you know what we're looking for, and I know you were taking notes.
Yeah, I think so. The only thing I'll back up and say is I guess my anticipation tonight after, coming to the town and talking with Gary and stuff was that I had everything I needed. I guess my bad for not realizing there was more to this than I expected. So happy to get this stuff for you. I'm sorry I didn't have it tonight. I just wasn't aware that I needed it.
Okay.
Did the town manager get back to you? He had sent us all an email asking if any of us had already reviewed your application in advance and, if we found any deficiencies, and I had responded and given him a list. Was that, or no, that was passed on to you?
No, I did not get that. He had indicated that he had done that and he would let me know that would the history. I've been working on this for about 4 months and it seemed like every time I had what I was led to believe I needed, there was something more and something more and something more. And so I met with Gary and Anthony a few weeks ago and turned the stuff in. And when I left the meeting, I said, okay, so we're good to go with everything I need. And I was assured that I was, and then here we are.
Well,
Which is fine. I get it. I know how everybody's time is, and I hate that you had to sit through this night and me not have everything that I need.
well, let me just say this. This is only a sketch plan review. The first meeting is a sketch plan review. Okay? There's always things that need to be added before the final subdivision.
Okay, good.
Okay?
If that's you guys' expectation, then I'm fine with it. I just felt like I'm sitting here kind of feeling like I didn't provide what you guys wanted me to provide is all. And I know this is all volunteer time and I hate to waste anybody's time. So.
No, a sketch plan review is just that, a sketch plan review. This is it's not a final subdivision.
But I think we're on the right path for getting this completed so that we could then move forward. We talked about completeness. We know we're lacking a few things, but it's not many, and I think we've outlined what they are. Right, so that's good. Does the board? I'm going to ask a question to the board. Do we need to decide to hold a public hearing?
Is it?
Asking that only because I just want to make sure if we.
My question, Peter, to you, do we have, is that something we have to do, or is it perhaps, or what? And what is?
It is not required.
So why do you bring it up?
Because there are times when if people felt strongly about it, you can require a public hearing.
Is if it's not in the ordinance, where are you getting that?
No, it is in the ordinance. It's in the ordinance that the board could require it, or they don't have to.
That's what I'm getting at. Okay. All right.
Yep.
Okay.
I don't think.
So at this point, do we know? Is there any? Is there a strong feeling that there should be a public meeting? Do we know that yet? I don't know that yet. I mean, so I don't know. Someone's going to talk to me here at the board. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel it's a minor subdivision and that we really don't need a public hearing.
Peter, that's a decision that we need to make upon having the complete application. So there's that. I tend to agree with Craig, unless with the caveat that unless, we hear from, I think there's another way my only concern is that we give adequate opportunity to the abutters to have their say. Right. But I'm not sure that necessitates having a public hearing and delaying the process further. They can still make comments on the record.
Yep.
And then we can take it from there in terms of how we consider those without, because when you held a public hearing, according to this, according to the ordinance, then, there's like a 30-day delay and.
Right. And I was thinking about those logistics, but what I did was skip ahead of the fact that we haven't considered this complete yet. So that's an important factor. So
Yeah. Now, if some of the abutters request a hearing, then that's maybe a different story.
correct, because some may, for all I know. But by getting more information about the abutters, as we discussed, and notifying them, and we know that we need more information to consider it complete. I'm looking ahead to the schedule to say, can we put this on the agenda for the next planning board meeting?
I think the kink in that armor is gonna be soil survey. Everybody that I've talked to, I assume that the soils engineer, where's my notes here? Oh, the stormwater drainage situation has got to be done by a soils engineer. At least the folks that I used to do the soils testing, it was quite a struggle to get them out there at all, let alone within a couple of week period of time.
Okay.
So I can do my best on that, but again, I don't want to have you guys pencil me in for some time that somebody else could take and me not be ready.
No problem. I was just trying to think about efficiencies of your time as
I
well.
love efficiencies. Yeah, I'm all about it, but I'm just concerned about that. So I guess what I could do is make some phone calls tomorrow and find out what a realistic expectation for that time frame is. And then my understanding from Gary was as long as I get back to you guys within a week prior to the next meeting, I can get on the docket.
That is correct.
Does that make the most sense to go that way, or?
Yes, and let me just tell you how we have our meetings. So our meetings are typically on the first and third Thursdays of the month. So next month being October, I'm kind of fast forwarding a little bit. So the 1st and the 15th. So it's probably not realistic to be in on the 1st. So if we wanted to meet on the 15th, you'd have to have that information back to the town by the 8th. Does that make sense?
It does.
And then if that doesn't work, then we're into November. So just toss out the dates for you. So November 5th is the first Thursday. So the week before that would be the 29th of October. To have the information into Nick.
Okay. A couple of questions. In talking with Gary and Anthony, they were talking about a potential moratorium on new subdivisions. Since this process is started, am I beholding to that if you guys decide to go that route? Or do I need to get to a certain point, like the application approved, to avoid that? Or
No, once the town receives your application, the moratorium does not affect you.
okay.
Right.
Okay.
So if I can't get this done in a couple of weeks period of time, I'm still okay. Because I'm not in any huge hurry. I just wanted to get in
Well,
under that.
I know you are, and you are okay.
Okay. So then I will work on these items. And I guess then it makes sense to, contact Nick or Gary, whoever you want me to contact, when I have this bullet list of items together.
Yep.
And bring them in and give them to Nick at least 7 days prior to the meeting that I'm trying to attend.
That's correct.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So for the board members, do we have any other comments for the applicant?
I have a general question for the board and for you, as for my benefit as well as for the benefit of Mr. Desmond. I don't see where for a minor subdivision there's any description of when the notice to the, or even if notice has to be provided to the abutters. I would hate to think that that was the case, but I see it for the major subdivision, which is 2 weeks in advance of the preliminary plan application submission. But I mean, I know you've obviously already notified some abutters, because I assume that's how Lois found out.
I don't know how Lois found out. No, that was the first time I've seen Lois. I think she's been, I think she called me a while ago and asked if it was okay to pick berries on my property, and I told her, yeah, but other than that, I haven't met her face to face, and
Okay, all
so
right.
she
Well,
found out through the grapevine, I'd say.
yeah, well, Belgrade's got an extensive one.
So George, on page 11,
Yep,
6.2,
okay.
it says that the subdivider shall notify all owners of abutting property and grantees that an application.
Oh, okay, all right, good.
That's my responsibility, not the town's.
Correct.
Okay.
So what would you require me to show you that I did that? Copies of the letters, or is there a form letter from the town that,
Um,
and when is it appropriate to do that? When the application is submitted?
No, it's certified mail, and the post office will give you a green.
Yep, I've done that before. Okay, yep.
Yep.
That's, you just bring those.
And should that be after now, or after you agree and I have the information you need for the application to be complete?
I don't think it matters, as long as the abutters know when the next meeting will be, when there may be a final
Okay.
approval.
So I will have to wait until we know what that meeting is.
Yeah,
So rather than 7 days in advance, I need to know 14 days in advance.
yeah.
So I can, so 2 weeks in advance for the abutters.
Mm-hmm,
Okay. So
okay,
once I have my information, we'll schedule the meeting at least 2 weeks out and immediately notify the abutters.
okay, yep,
Is that correct?
I think so.
yeah.
Now, that isn't to say that that's the final meeting either, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. But it doesn't matter that they come to the final one. They can put their input in anytime they like.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
piece of cake.
Any other comments or anything for the applicant?
No, not for me.
Pete, you doing okay?
I'm fine, yeah.
Craig?
Good.
All right. Max feeling dangerous. All right. All right. And Mr. Desmond, any more questions for us tonight?
Oh, just want to thank you guys. I know it's a late night. Appreciate your time, and I'll get the stuff together and we'll chat again.
Okay, thank you. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the near future, whatever it is, 2-4 weeks out, whatever it is, and we'll go from there, okay?
Okay, night, everyone.
All right, good night. Thanks. So I think, everybody, that was it for old business and new business. Before we go, Gary, if you're still with us, I see your block there. Any business from the town that we should be aware of tonight? Maybe not. And that's okay. Does anybody else have anything to bring up tonight?
I just have one item, Peter. We all got an email to this effect that the Jones application has been appealed to the Board of Appeals, and the attorney for the abutters, Mr. Nagel, his first, you may have noticed, his first argument is that we didn't follow the proper procedures in the ordinance by virtue of the fact of not having a written findings of fact and law. That's not exactly what the ordinance requires, but it does require our decision, the basis of our decision basically something comparable to a findings of fact to be in writing. So I'm guessing that he's going to prevail on that. It's something we should just be prepared for. But I have a question that relates to this, and that is, I know when we've denied applications in the past, there's a form that we complete that provides the basis for the denial. In that case, we approved it, but with conditions. The ordinance requires us to do something comparable, just as if we were denying it. It's only if we approve something without any conditions that we don't need to do anything in writing. And I was wondering if that same form is the form we were supposed to have used.
Good.
Or do we need to come up with a different form?
Because the conditions are listed on a form that Nick has. Traditionally, it's been a triplicate thing. And Nick, if you're still with us, maybe you can chime in.
Yes, there's a triplicate form. I think for that case though, I just attached the conditions rather than write them out.
So, yeah, it didn't, I don't think the problem, I mean, we should wait and see, but what I'm anticipating is that it'll be remanded back to us because we didn't, well, maybe I can find it real quick in the ordinance, but on the same page in section 16 where it talks about, page 66, where it talks about the performance standards that an application has to be met, has to meet in order to be approved, you know, things like maintain water quality and all that kind of stuff. Below that, below 8, it says if a permit is either denied or approved with conditions, the reasons as well as conditions shall be stated in writing. And we did, as Nick noted, the conditions are certainly in writing, but our reasons are not. They're only on the verbal record. And so my question is, if that should happen to be remanded back to us, can we use the form that we would have used? I just can't remember. The last time we used it was when we denied the permit for Sean Grant, I believe.
That's a great question. Because if the answer is no, that means we have to come up with a method of documenting, right?
Right. Or rationale.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's all on the obviously it's all on the record, and you know, presumably it'll be in the minutes, but I don't think that may prove not to be adequate. We'll see, I suppose. I guess maybe it would be helpful just to think about this a little bit more, because if that should be the case, obviously we're going to have to change our procedures considerably. Maybe Nick, if we could ask Nick to send us all a copy of that form so we could take a look at it in anticipation.
Yeah, I can see if I can snag that and send it to all you guys.
Right.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. Good thinking, George. And that appeals board hearing is on the 23rd, if I recall correctly.
Right. I believe you're right.
I can go back and look at the email, but if my dates are correct, the 23rd would be next Wednesday.
Yeah. I mean, you know, none of us should be surprised that it's appealed, given, you know, just the whole nature of the application and the climate down in that part of Sandy Cove. But I didn't. So I suspect this will be like a two-part appeal.
Yeah. Okay. I may attend that. I don't want to, but I probably will.
There may be good reasons not to, Peter.
Yeah. Yep. Understood. Um, Okay. Any other business for tonight?
I do have one thing to bring up.
Sure, Nick.
Just a suggestion. Well, I can't remember. Is Nick coming back for the October 1st meeting? I couldn't remember if he said he was or not. If he is, the agenda right now is pretty full. So I was going to suggest maybe canceling Nick if he was coming on October 1st. Or that's up to you guys.
I don't want to overburden us. I want to be respectful of Nick as well, but I do not want to overburden us. So if it's full already, then I suggest we have Nick go to the second meeting in October.
I second that.
Hey, Peter,
Yes, sir.
I have to tell you, I'm kind of frustrated and I need to talk to Anthony because Nick and I have enough permit applications ahead that we're probably booked all through November and probably into December. I've 6 or 7 shoreline zoning applications, plus the finish of this subdivision. I've got an 8-lot subdivision on the Dunn Road that I've got that needs to be scheduled for a sketch plan review. So
You got a 10 lot subdivision next meeting.
a 10 lot, oh yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. I'm sorry, it's 10,
Yep.
not 8. Yep. So, I mean, and Anthony kind of indicated to me that he wants to see what's on the agenda because he doesn't want to overburden you. So I try to consult with him, but it's very hard when somebody brings an application in and I tell them that you might not get to the planning board until December, and I really can't tell you when it's going to be because I don't know what's going to get tabled from the meeting previously.
Well, I hear you, Gary, and I feel you. Let me ask the board this. October has a lot of Thursdays. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, we only have 2 meetings, no matter how many Thursdays there are.
Well, I'm about to suggest not that. Have a
Okay,
special meeting
that's fine.
on the 29th.
Mhm.
I'm just asking.
So you guys will get paid extra.
Oh yeah, twice the pay on the 29th. But if the business is that busy with applications, to me, either townsfolk have to wait months to get through.
Mhm.
We have these 4 or 5 hour, 4-hour marathon sessions, or another meeting in the month to help get us through something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Me and Nick will send you an inventory of what I got ahead, but it's a lot. It's a lot.
Pete,
Gary, is this an unintended consequence of the proposed ordinance to put a moratorium on subdivisions?
No, it's the only subdivision that I know of. The guy's been planning it since July. He's building a spec house he built a spec house and sold it. He's building another one now. And he bought some property and wanted to subdivide it. Yes, he's trying to beat the moratorium. Yep.
Pete Sargent.
Well, just thinking, there's a third alternative here is that the town could consider they need to prioritize to what the planning board is, why they're here. And the primary, my way of thinking, the primary reason for us to be here is to review permits rather than spend a heck of a lot of time on updating various ordinances. So when it gets busy, I think our service to the taxpayers, processing applications and updating ordinances take a secondary role. So we got to keep that in mind. And that needs to be, it's easy for me to say that, but as chairperson, you got to, deal with it, and that means talking to the select people about those kind of concerns because we got to keep that in mind. we're here for the taxpayers, and that's
Yep.
doing processing, the application. So,
Yep, I hear you, Pete.
yep.
I mean, that's certainly the approach we've taken in the past and other ordinances we've worked on. The one thing that's different is we're on the clock now because of the moratorium, which, probably will pass. And so we have 180 days to get this done. And, our initial plans aside, which was to get it to next town meeting, if if the moratorium passes, we got 180 days to complete a subdivision ordinance.
Yeah, we can
Before
do that if we need, but,
Right.
but yeah, I agree with what Pete said. I don't know if I can make the 29th meeting though, in October.
Yeah, I also agree with what Peter said, and yeah, we are on the clock, and I know everybody wants it to be done by town meeting because that would make everything easy. But the truth is, the town clock doesn't end at town meeting. The town clock ends 180 days afterwards, and so if it has to happen that we go to the school board vote next June, then that's what happens. It is what it is. We'll do the best we can, but
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, 4-hour meetings, I'm not interested in adding more to that. So
Yep, I hear you. All right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Just wanted to put it out there. I don't want to have added meetings either. I really don't. I don't like even suggesting it, but I felt it was important to even bring it up. So that's why I asked it.
That's a good point to bring up, I think. It really is. It needed to be
Yeah.
brought up. I'm glad you brought it up.
All right. Well, gentlemen, is there any other business for tonight?
I guess related to that, when we left with the commercial development application, I sort of understood that was the only item agenda for next week, for next meeting. And so now Gary and Nick say that we're booked to December. So I guess
The reason I said that is because we just tabled that subdivision, so that'll be back on the agenda.
right. So you're right about that.
Right, and I have several building permit applications, and I can't even remember how many I have. Nick has them, and I know Adam Gardner's bringing 2 more in the next week or 2, probably. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot ahead.
I guess it also means, I don't know where we left off with Nick from KV Cog, but
Right.
maybe somebody should tell him that he can't come next
Let
week.
me and Nick inventory what we've got for permits, and I'll give you an exact count of how many we have, but we have several ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Peter,
All right.
Peter,
Yep.
if we are potentially considering, adding a supplemental meeting, rather than having that dedicated to permits, maybe it should be dedicated to the 1 hour we work on the subdivision, because that way it would be a very relatively short meeting and with a very defined purpose, rather than, permits that just kind of ramble on forever.
Or you might even let Nick work with you for an hour and then maybe do 1 or 2 shoreline permits that are relatively simple and not complex,
Yep.
But we'll see.
Okay. Gary, thank you very much. We're looking forward to what you and Nick come up with. And
Yeah, well, I'll make sure you see them.
okay, thanks very much.
I had a meeting scheduled I've had 2 meetings scheduled with a company that wants to do another solar farm in Belgrade. They were supposed to come in today at noontime, and she called me at 11 o'clock this morning and said, you know what? We're going to put the brakes on. We know there's a moratorium. We were trying to beat it. We're not even going to try. We're going to put the brakes on. We assume the moratorium is going to pass, and we'll just wait till after that's all done, and then you'll see us then. So that got put on the back burner by their choice. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Whew. Dodged a bullet there.
Mhm. So the lights are off on the sign at the secondhand shop.
Okay. Well done.
That was kind of funny because I stopped and saw the girl that owns it, and she said, you know, I know that I'm not supposed to have them lights on, but she said the wiring is so screwed up in this building that the only way to shut the lights off is to kill the main to the whole building. So she said, she said, my sign got wrecked in that windstorm. And because of this COVID, I can't get anybody to build me a sign. So I'm just going to take the bulbs out. And she did.
All right. Well,
So
Oh,
that
man.
anyhow,
good enough.
that's all I have.
Be sure to call Roger with that news, Gary.
Yeah.
Call who?
Roger DeRozier.
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
Hey, did we ever do anything for him?
I don't know what the end result was. I know there was some money that was collected, but I'm not sure what happened in the end.
I'll ask Anthony. He's on vacation the rest of the week.
Okay. All right. That would be good. It'd be good to know what the end result was.
Yep, I'll find out.
Thanks, Gary.
Yep.
All right. I have no other news other than to say huge thank you to all of you for your time. Thank you very, very much. Have a great night. Let's call it a wrap, shall we? I've got 9:41.
Very good.
Have a good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Right.